during the run. So we can go ahead and get started. Just gotta make sure everything works. Alrighty. I'm gonna start here in 3, 2, 1. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is Parasite Eve, the greatest speed game of them all. It was released by Square at the time. Squaresoft? I can't remember exactly. It was March of 1998. It was in between Final Fantasy 7 and 8. So it is the first Square title to ever be rated M for mature. And it's also the first Square title to start using the polygon models of design. So you'll see it looks a lot more like 8, but a lot of the art style is a lot more reminiscent of Final Fantasy 7. Can I get 2 world records? No, unfortunately. So Ni no Kuni is in a situation where there's only, outside of myself, there's only one other runner. So we work on it a lot, and we can only do so much. Whereas, we can do a lot more with the run, right? I'm sorry about that. And Parasite Eve, however, is highly optimized, and I've put a shameful amount of hours into getting the world record run that there is now. So there's no way that I'll get a world record in a marathon ever. It would require me playing so dangerously that we could die at really any point. So unfortunately, no world record this time, but it's all good. Hopefully we still see a good run. Palm it up. Hell yeah. So this game is it's called the Cinematic RPG, and that's for good reason. Oops. Wow. But it's called the Cinematic RPG, and that's because this game is so full of unskippable cutscenes. Right here, you're actually going to see a 3-minute cutscene that is completely unskippable. It is a really cool, pretty dark introduction to the game. So if you've not played the game or anything like that, you definitely should watch the cutscenes throughout this run, because we can't skip them, so you might as well enjoy them. But they're pretty awesome. The music is great. The vibe is very dark, very ominous, and it's really unique to a game period of this time, especially one from Square, who was known for the more, you know, storytelling Final Fantasy style of games. We get to actually follow the story. Unfortunately, yes, we do. This run is a Resident Sleeper. It's a very quiet game. The music is very very low, like it's not exceptionally loud, and it pretty much sorry about that. It pretty much tries to lend itself more to like the creepy, kind of quiet and scary vibe, but it just basically sounds like it's muted all the time, so I'll actually probably end up turning it up. I'll turn it up just a little bit, see if it helps you guys out. Ni no Kuni is very loud, and Parasite Eve is very quiet, so I try to kind of find a spot in the middle. So hopefully, if it's too loud now, let me know. I just adjusted the volume a little bit. But the world record for this is exceptionally optimized. There's probably only 1.5 minutes of time save, barring like any crazy. There's probably up to 2 minutes now. We have a new strategy I came up with for worms that saves about 40 seconds. But outside of that, it's a lot of RNG. It took me a lot of runs to get the RNG that I have in the current world record. So realistically, you could shave off 2 minutes with great RNG, great execution, and the advanced strategy, which is very difficult. I've only ever pulled it off once in a run. So it's not something that you can do in a marathon, that's for sure. Exocama, 121 worms, exactly. He knows Exocama is a regular Parasite Eve viewer of mine. so he's familiar with it. The coveted 121 worm strat. So essentially, I'll explain the story a little bit as I progress, because it's the cutscenes, while you get to watch them in their entirety, are not immediately telling as far as like what the hell is going on. There's still a chance of world record. I doubt it. This game is very dangerous to run at a world record pace. You have a really, really good chance of dying on pretty much every boss, and I'm gonna take a bunch of safety precautions to make sure that that doesn't happen, because you can get gypped by just about anything in this game. I've died on probably every single screen with an enemy at some point or another. So this fight can either take 4, 5, or 6 hits. 4 being exceptionally rare. It would require you to crit every single hit, and we've already lost that opportunity. I've actually only ever seen that once in about 500-ish attempts. 5 hit is a little bit more common. It would require 2 of 5 hits to crit, and we missed that as well. So we're getting the slow fight. That's okay. You saw me take that damage in the beginning, and that was because my ATB was at a certain threshold that if I didn't take the damage from the first laser, I was going to have to sit through a final animation after the 6th hit, which loses you about 3 or 4 seconds. But every turn costs about 3 seconds at this point in the game while we're using the club. So a 4 hit, 5 hit, and 6 hit can already put you ahead or behind based on RNG, anywhere from 3 to 6 seconds. This game is controlled using the D-pad. You can use analog movement, but the game wasn't actually developed with analog in mind. Analog movement came out towards the end of the game's development period, so instead of making it a feature, they just kind of lumped it on the end where you could turn it on, and it would just replace D-pad controls. So if you have analog on, you actually can't have, your D-pad doesn't work, and vice versa. My roommate coming through again, everyone's favorite roommate with some pizza rolls, my man. But most of this game was developed with D-pad in mind anyways, so you're not going to find, there's probably 2 screens in the entire game where having analog movement over D-pad actually helps. And D-pad also helps tremendously, like it's way, way, way better for, it's way better for menuing, so it's definitely the predominantly used thing. I know there's a couple runners that prefer analog. I've never even tried it. So switching between Ni no Kuni and Parasite Eve gives me a little bit of grief because their movement controls are entirely different. But I'll get used to it here in a few minutes. So this fight can either end in 1 or 2 hits based on if you crit. So we didn't crit there, so you lose another 3 seconds. So already in the first 7.5 minutes, based on RNG, you can lose up to 9 seconds. And we did. We're on the slowest possible pace right now, all things being equal. A lot of learning the speed run and getting like more optimal with your run is actually finding out like what kind of lines you can take, what kind of stuff you get stuck on. This game is notorious for having really poor triggers, like clicking on this book, clicking on doors, elevators, things like that is really, really difficult. And there's a lot of stuff that you can get stuck on that's not actually on the map, whereas like environmental things in the background have like really weird hitboxes, so you can get caught up on invisible crap all the time. And then part of repetition of this is learning how to deal with that. So you'll see me take a lot of weird angles and crap like that for a while, or at certain points rather, and that's usually to be dodging most of that stuff. Otherwise, the movement in this game is exceptionally precise, because you can only move in a certain amount of directions thanks to the D-pad, and it is a screen-to-screen RPG style of game. pretty much just run in straight lines the whole time. Poor rat has parasites in the neurons. Yeah, the animals in this game are actually really, really cool. A lot of creatures come to life and morph and turn into stuff, and it's pretty interesting. It would have been super fun to develop and kind of do the art for. But you'll see, like, especially in Eve right here, you'll see her look a lot like Genova and things like that. You can kind of see the Final Fantasy VII elements. So this fight is the gatekeeper of the beginning of the game. Basically, you want to run around and not get swatted. So pretty much the opposite of Ice Poseidon's career. Now, I'm going to heal here because she can actually kill you fairly easily. And you want to see crits as often as possible. Her movement is completely up to RNG. You should usually be able to get 2 attacks off to her every one. So you can either lose or gain up to 10 whole seconds just from RNG on crits and her movement and where your ATB starts at the beginning. So had I not had to heal, which I would have died had I not, this would have actually been a really good fight. It's a pretty clean fight, honestly. So we're probably about 15 seconds behind world record pace already, and it's only going to get a little bit worse. Most of us who are high competitive times on the leaderboards are run at a pretty solid pace because there's not a whole lot of RNG in day 1, which is what we're doing now. So I reset almost, like, half of my streams are usually Parasite Eve day 1 resets, which is the first 20 minutes or so. That's what you fight in the first 15 minutes. Yeah, so it's a real standard Square JRPG where you actually do a lot of gameplay that's rather difficult before you get to a tutorial. All these fights are pretty fixed. If you move certain ways, you can actually dictate what the enemies are going to do. And you can see that my range actually extends a lot further than the actual club seems. So I stand in pretty advantageous positions so that I can move around a little bit easier. Because one thing that I need to mention that's very, very crucial in this game is contact damage. So as you see right there, where I bumped into the rat, I took 2 damage. That is something that is very, very important to learning a run, and we will abuse it a little bit later on, and I'll explain that when we get there. But essentially, when you run, ooh, very good. When you run into an enemy, you are stunned for a quarter of a second, and you take a really, really small amount of damage, usually pretty insignificant. Less than, it's usually like 1% of your health or something like that. But when you take that contact damage, it stutters you for a second, so you're obviously more prone to taking more damage from the next ability, or you are going to miss because while you're stunned, they move away from your attack or whatever. So that box right there, had we gotten offense 2 instead of 1, would have saved us about 13 seconds. Instead, we got to run into this room and pick this up. I might as well heal. And in this next fight with the double frogs here, we can save another probably 14 or 15 seconds, depending on if we get really good RNG in this fight. So in day 1, there's probably a minute of time save or loss just based on RNG alone. Oh, I didn't heal. What a mistake. So we're already not getting the good attack or the good fight. What we want to see is 2 crits on our 3 attacks, and that will kill each frog on 1 turn. And avoid us having to do this menuing here, which is to reload our gun and to heal. This game looks like Resident Evil 1 is an RPG. Yeah, so it basically is. What happened was Square saw that our Silent Hill, Dino Crisis, Resident Evil, those kinds of games were coming out and filling that action RPG or that action-based survival horror game and things like that. So Square figured that they would get put a game into that space to try and compete with those others. having only really developed story-driven RPGs, this is what they ended up coming up with, which is kind of a mesh of the two. It favors the RPG style of play more than anything, though. And then you see the complete opposite in Parasite Eve 2, whereas they kind of realized the path they went down and made a completely different game. Parasite Eve 1 and 2 are exceptionally different, completely different genres of game. So it's unfortunate because Parasite Eve, there's not another game like it that plays like this, that acts like this, and not even the other games in the series are similar. So it is super, super unique. If you haven't played it casually, I would absolutely give it a try. So right here at Crocodile, he's pretty rough. Your timing on your very first rotation of attacks is super, super important. If you mistime the first rotation of attack, the whole fight goes to crap. 1, 2, 3. So right there was perfect. And we don't want to see crits, so that's unfortunate that we did there. I think I was a little bit slow on that. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. We're good. Wow, perfect first phase. Perfect first phase. The second phase is much more simple. I probably should have saved because he can sometimes just one-shot you with really, really poor luck. But I think we're okay. So I'll explain a couple things real quick. Crits work in this game usually based on proximity, and that's the same can be said for accuracy. Certain guns have different accuracies, obviously, longer ranges, things like that, which is indicated by the kind of green dome that appears around me when I choose to input an attack command. So damage rolls weren't great, otherwise we could have avoided that last phase, but it's regardless, all the same. Is this the first game in the series or no? This is the first game. Parasite Eve is the first game, Parasite Eve 2 being the second, and then there is a third one called the Turd Birthday that we choose to pretend doesn't exist. It's an abomination to the Parasite Eve franchise. But that's day one. That actually was a pretty clean day one. Not really good luck or anything like that, but as far as the safety is concerned, it was pretty standard. So it's good to see. In this game, it does play a lot like Resident Evil and Final Fantasy, merged together, which is what's so terrific about it. Yeah, it is that bad. It is that bad. You have everything that Parasite Eve, like Parasite Eve 1 fans and Parasite Eve 2 fans are usually completely different styles of people. Wolf DMC, Carcinogen, those kinds of guys really love Parasite Eve 2. Whereas me and a couple of other more RPG-oriented people really prefer Parasite Eve 1. But we can all agree that they're both great games in their respective genres and their respective categories and classes, whatever you want to categorize it as. And nobody agrees that Parasite Eve 3, the third birthday, is worth a crap. They pretty much gave you a backhand to Parasite Eve 1 and 2 players by making it completely different, by making it PSP exclusive, and just by making a really poorly developed game that was pretty much just entirely fan service. And they didn't even do a very good job of it. So we're actually not too far behind. This is probably only 25 seconds or so behind what I would consider a really good pace. But now is where we get the tutorial in very standard JRPG or Squaresoft fashion. You do a lot of gameplay that's actually quite difficult, and you should really take slow in a casual experience, or it can be quite punishing. And then they give you the tutorial afterwards, like we needed at that point. Yeah, fan service without any of the good parts. Like, it's hard to screw up even fan service, you know what I mean? But they managed to. And it's on PSP. It was a PSP exclusive, which is like the video game equivalent of going straight to DVD. So I'm going to show you doors real quick. As you can see right here, I'm trying to run through this door. It's not enough to just run into the door. You actually have to, at the last second, angle yourself so that you're going in the direction that the door will be taking you, right around where the door trigger is. Now, if you're not doing that pretty precisely, you're going to slide across the door with your face, like I just displayed for you guys. And for new speedrunners or people who are playing casually, that's actually like a really big issue. Because I've watched a few people play casually and they think that the door is locked or that they're going the wrong way or something because they weren't able to get through the door because the doors are so janky. Whereas games like Silent Hill and Resident Evil, you pretty much just run into the door and it's going to open for you. So that's one thing that you can use to kind of optimize your abilities and practice and get your times down a few seconds once you've kind of reached a wall as far as your improvements are concerned. So here's where we get the tutorial, which I'm just going to skip. About 20 minutes into the speed run. Get rid of all the stuff that they've been given. So the reason you see me do things like that is because your inventory is exceptionally limited in this game. Exceptionally limited. What happens is you have 20 spaces of inventory, and in order to increase your inventory size, you actually would have to use your bonus attribute points, which you can either put into attack, your ATB charge rate, the range of your gun, your ammo count of your gun, or you can make your inventory bigger. So naturally, nobody ever wants to do that. However, there's a lot of key items that get forced into your inventory that you can't actually get rid of. So in the speedrun, it becomes super, super limiting. On top of that, all the medicine is named medicine 1, 2, 3, 4, and that reflects like their respective ability to heal. And the issue with that is that they don't stack or anything like that, so if you have a decent amount of medicines, your inventory is almost entirely full. Ammo, different guns, different equipment, that all takes up space as well. So micromanaging your inventory is one of the biggest proponents of like getting a really good time. Chrono Crosser, man, I'm sorry I missed you, man. Good to see you. Chrono Crosser and Exokama, you both chilling. Good to see you guys. Those are a couple of Parasite Eve regulars from my channel. It's good to see you guys. So as far as the marathon is concerned, what I worry about safety-wise for resets is mostly just day 1. By the time we get to day 2 and any real strong enemies that aren't pretty scripted and optimized as far as the fights are concerned start to appear, I should have the safety items to be able to deal with it 100%. However, a lot of that is slower strategies that I have to go out of my way to pick up items I don't actually pick up in my run. I believe that Baten Kaitos is actually just in a period of waiting for an item to be developed. I know that that Buffon is playing a little bit every day or whatever, so he must be in a position that's pretty advantageous to just wait. I don't know anything about the game, so unfortunately I can't help you there. So one thing I'll explain while we got a whole lot of nothing going on, and we're about to hit a huge mashing cutscene, is first of all, check out how fast Daniel drives. Look at how fast this car is traveling, right? Complete speed of light, as if there's no traffic at all in New York City. They don't care. They don't care about anything. God forbid a pedestrian get in their way. But regardless, about 40 minutes of this game is cutscenes and mashing. Now the world record is 2:56:35, I believe, and so you can see where it's 40 minutes of that being cutscenes and mashing. That's pretty sizable. It's quite a bit as far as the entirety of the game is concerned. But I'll explain some storyline and a couple more interesting techs for the game real fast. So ammo consumption is huge, and knowing what kind of gun you have, knowing how many bullets are in that gun, and knowing how many bullets you fire a turn is very, very important, because that is how we manage to manipulate the reload animation. So later we're going to get a gun that kind of makes it irrelevant, and we'll use that gun for a majority of the run. But you'll see me in between certain fights put my bullets on a specific amount, whether it be like one up or one down. And that's because I need either an even number or an odd number of bullets to avoid having to reload in the middle of an attack. So if my gun fires, say, 3 bullets, like the gun we currently have equipped does, then I want to make sure that I have 3, 6, 9, or 0, something like that, bullets, in order to avoid having to fire 2, watch her reload the gun, and then fire the 3rd shot. And the reason for that is simple. The reload animation takes almost a whole second and a half, or a whole second in its entirety, and for a half second, a quarter second before and a quarter second after, so a half second in total, you're actually like you're kind of locked, so you can take a lot of damage, and you can't actually act on anything. So even if you get hit, it doesn't interrupt your reload or anything like that. You just gotta wait to finish your reload before you'll fire the next bullet. And because of the nature of this game, not being able to do a command that you input immediately is very punishing, because a lot of enemies like to run away, a lot of enemies like to sneak in hits or can stun lock you. So you want to make sure that your movement and your input commands are happening as quickly as possible in order to avoid like just extra damage and extra bullcrap. But I'll explain the story up into this point. So in the beginning, you saw her in the theater with her date, presumably met on Craigslist or Tinder. I know that the Tinder scene in 1997 was very fire. But she is with her date in this theater, and they're obviously seeing an opera or what have you. And all of a sudden, this lady starts to sing, and people catch fire. Now everybody is super confused as to why that's happening, and honestly, they don't explain too much at that point in the first place. It's kind of on purpose. But we're gonna skip a lot of the explanation, which just happened in that office you saw right there. And basically, what happens is this female. Well, let me rewind for a second. It's important to know that this game was actually based off of a novel, which turned into a movie in Japan, also called Parasite Eve. You can actually watch the movie in its entirety in the same resolution as you're seeing this game be played right now on YouTube. So if you've played the game or you know anything about the story, I would definitely go check it out. It's worth watching. It's worth a few giggles and some lore. But regardless, in that book or movie, whatever media you chose to partake in it, there is a doctor whose wife dies, and he's like a biochemist. And his wife dies, and he cultures her liver cells in an attempt to, like, give her life again, bring her back from the dead, those kinds of things. Pretty delusional, love-stricken situation. Pretty standard. And then he ends up creating these advanced mitochondria cells that eventually take hold of their own, kind of like the blob or something like that. They can kind of call on other mitochondria cells and things like that to use those other cells to group together and form like gelatinous blobs that are able to kind of like transform and shapeshift and stuff like that. And they basically kill everybody, right? That's the overall premise. So in the movie, they end up going around and trying to stop this mitochondria being who is basically taken on the form of his dead wife, who is doing the similar things that you see in this game, catching people on fire, burning things down, pretty terroristic style of stuff. And he eventually is able to stop her in the end. Spoiler alert. But in this game, what they do is they basically, after that has already happened, and they actually pay tribute to that quite a few times throughout the game, they talk about the disaster in Japan and how it ended and everything like that. But we find out in this game that it's the same situation is going on in New York a little bit later. So that's why we're trying to figure out what's going on. Basically, this chick who is doing the same exact stuff that Eve in Japan was, is lighting people on fire, is levitating, is burning things down, and what she does is she summons the energy from mitochondria around her. So if you know anything about the law of physics, which this game does not abide by at all, except in this one regard, is that when energy is put off, heat is produced. So that's why people melt or catch fire and things like that. And she's also able to then use that, the people's melted remains and stuff like that, to add to herself, like bring her mitochondria in. It just makes her more powerful, makes her bigger, whatever. So that's what she's doing to turn these critters into monsters, essentially. So every chest in the game, almost every chest in the game, that's not all of them, there's very few exceptions, but we'll give you two items. One being an 80% chance and one being a 20% chance. So in that first chest, we want to get the 80% chance item, which is a medicine. And in a chest here in a little bit, we want to get the 20%, or we want to get the 80% again. Now, if you see 20% in the first one, it's not a big deal, but if we see the 20% item from the next chest I get, I actually usually reset over it if I'm doing like world record attempts or whatever. But now we're at Central Park, and as you noticed, Daniel tried to run in, but some people are more sensitive to the mitochondria summoning elements, and Daniel being a pretty sensitive one, so he actually can't even get within a certain range of her without starting to burst into flames. Which is why you see some people getting melted in the theater and some people living and things like that. It's a very intense plot. Compared to Ni no Kuni, it's pretty intense. So right here we got really bad ATV, so I'm gonna have to take damage from this first bird. Now birds are probably the worst thing in the entire game. They have the ability, oh my god, to stun lock you, and they drop literal junk. Like you saw that usually that fight drops 2 junks, but we got the 20% chance drop from them, which is that 1 medicine 1, so that's pretty good. I picked up the junk for that. That's how I valued the medicine over the inventory space. But birds can stun lock you. They move around really rapidly, which is hard to ensure that you're going to land your hits without losing some kind of accuracy. And then they drop junk, which just fills up your inventory. It's exactly what it sounds like. Now in a casual playthrough, junk is used to like make super weapons at the police station. Oh my gosh. So I would have reset. That's the box I was talking about. Now we have to take about a 30-second detour in order to make up for the lack of what we just missed out on right there. So this fight's actually quite dangerous, despite it being just a regular encounter, at least in the speedrun. The guy with the boomerang arm actually does a stunning amount of damage, especially if he comes into melee range, which he's going to do right now. You want to keep him out of melee range as best as possible because his, oh my, and he crit, how about that? Because his melee attack, or his boomerang attack is much easier to dodge, which I failed to display right there. Whereas his melee attack is quite difficult. So he's going to melee me no matter what here. And you see me not pick up those because I know junk is going to be there. Here's a situation where even though there's nothing in front of you, you can get stuck. You see that? So that's one of the weird map situations where you gotta kind of be mindful. So right there, I unload my gun to make sure that I don't reload in my next animation, and that's because I'm fighting a snake. The snakes, especially early on in the speedrun, when you're not very high level, you don't have a huge HP pool, are very, very nasty. Their poison does about 4 damage a tick, which is crazy at this stage of the game when you have a very limited amount of restorative items and things like that. The 2 items in the chest are ammo and a tool. Now a tool is what we use to upgrade our weapons, kind of like synthesis, and the ammo is obviously ammo. But the tool, we use a very, very specific amount of tools in this run, so we need every single one of them that we plan on getting. So in order to make up for the fact that I didn't get that, right here I'm going to have to take a 30-second detour. The one we got, oh my goodness. So there's famous PSP controls. If you fat finger it because you're being not careful, you'll actually lose a lot of time. Have you ever farted out of your butt onto an old lady's eyelid? Not today, at least. Have I ever done it? I don't know. It's possible. So here we get a first look of what every Cher concert goes like. And it's funny, I should mention it now. So we came to the consensus that this form of Eve, with her hair all crazy and looking like she does right here, it looks a lot like Cynthia from Rugrats. Now, if you don't know who that is, definitely look it up. It's one of my viewers brought that up to me once, and now I say it all the time because it's hilarious to me. But she summons everybody in the crowd's mitochondria energy, forcing them to melt, and then basically that blob is added to her army of blob. She can pretty much mold it and shift it however she wants. So right here we just do some mashing, some running from screen to screen. She is it's pretty crazy, pretty wild gal. We find out more about her actual story, the fact that she is just a singer that somehow received this mitochondria advancement mutation, and it's giving her grief, giving her issue, and causing all these problems. But if you're paying attention, you can actually see that you can buffer your movement very, very well in this game. So it's very important to know what screen you're running up on and to start moving in the direction that you should be going in the middle of the load. Oh, excuse me. By doing this, you'll save actually like whole minutes at the end of the run because of how much of a difference it makes. So you can actually like hold right, and when the screen finishes loading, you'll already be like 10 steps heading in that direction. So this is the alternate route that we have to take because we didn't get the tool out of that box. Usually I don't even bother with this, I'll just reset. But can't reset a marathon, so we're gonna do it, we're gonna wing it, we're gonna hope for the best. Oops, wrong one. Central Park is probably the most famous of areas in this game. A lot of people really remember, if they remember any fight in the whole game, it's usually the worms, because it's pretty early on. It's a pretty hard fight. Now, naturally, for speedrunning strategies, we have it figured out to the absolute as fast as you can possibly kill it. What is the fastest possible way that anybody will ever be capable of, and it's the 121. That's barring that we find any new strats, but using new guns or something like that. Now this fight is really annoying. It's 4 birds, and birds can stun lock you. They drop a lot of trash, and they fly around. And it's a very large screen, so it's super hard to guarantee that you're gonna hit every single time you fire. So you can lose a little bit of time here. Basically, it's got to lead them. And at the last second move, you'll see me stutter walk a little bit. That's something I started doing without realizing, and a lot of people have mentioned in the past or asked me why I've done it. Another thing that I failed to mention is, which is also quite important, is that you'll see me at the end of fights choose start moving, and that's because I want to move in the direction, or I want to be as close to the next loading zone on the screen as soon as the fight's over, obviously, so I take fewer steps. Now, like Final Fantasy VII, and because it was before analog, you actually have to hold circle the entire time you run, which makes no sense to me. I've never understood that. why developers thought, you know what, these people are going to prioritize movement by walking, so we should probably make walking the predominant style of movement. And if they choose to, then they can hold the button to run. So yeah, the whole time we have to hold the button. Unfortunately, it's not like Silent Hill or some other games where you can actually just change that in the menu. So you have to just get used to it. And because you mash so much, it's I actually hold it like in my lap and use 2 fingers to control the buttons. So right there, that polar bear, he shoots lightning. Doesn't have to make sense because it's dope. Usually this fight goes a lot better than this one is gonna go, and that's because this one of them, they die in 1 turn if you crit on at least one of your attacks. And I didn't right there, so we take a lot of damage because these guys are quite strong. It actually throws off my reload count a little bit, but it's okay. So if we manage to get the tool, which is a 20% chance out of this next box as opposed to the defense 1, we save about 10 seconds. We lose about 2 to do it, and we didn't get it, but that's okay. Actually not doing bad as far as time is concerned. I'm gonna attempt the 121 worm strat, which has only ever been done once. It's really, really hard. Requires not only good luck, but insane timing, and honestly, luck runs like half of it. So it is super luck driven, really, really RNG based. So we always want to kill the bush with arms first, because that way we can just fire 1 shot apiece. You can actually kill them in 1 hit if you crit. We didn't get it there, so it's not the end of the world. And now we position ourselves for worms. Now because I know that I've picked up junk, I'm gonna actually sort and remove a lot of the junk that I've picked up so far. We're gonna heal to full. We're gonna reload our weapon. Now a full reload can either be 0 or full, like you go all the way up. And here goes the 121. Let's see if we can do it. Oh, well, there's a chance. So in order to do the 121 worm strat, you actually have to start with grade ATB, and we did right there, so I'm going to attempt it. Now, we used to think this fight was entirely random, and the fastest we could really realistically do it was like a 140, a 150. And, you know, oftentimes that didn't even happen. But I did a whole bunch of number crunching one day, and we found out that you can actually do it. It's not as random as we once thought. It's actually quite predicted, depending on what the first worm you attack completely dictates the rest of the actions of the next few worm cycles. Ooh, let's see if I get this off. I did. Perfect. Oh my goodness, we were 1 attack away. 1 attack away from the 121. So that's the timing. Because I got hit there, I positioned myself poorly. That was actually just a huge misplay on my part. Oh man. Almost 2nd time in history. The combat system is a lot like Vagrant Story as far as like the movement and the enemies are concerned. Obviously, it's less dependent on like combos and things like that. So I was out of range. Figured I'd risk it. But as you can see, now that I've screwed it up, I'll explain how the worms actually work. Heal for safety. So when you kill 1 worm, wow, so unlucky. When you kill 1 worm, you actually the next worms they'll gain health and get bigger and stronger. So the fastest way to do it, the reason the 121 strat is the fastest way you can kill them, is because you kill all 3 worms on 1 turn, meaning that they don't have the opportunity to go and gain more health. So as you can see, if you manage to get all of them dead and you see this mega worm, It's actually quite awful. Appreciate you, man. Man, so close to 121, Dylan. You missed it. Yeah, it was awful. Oh, yikes. Fortunately enough, I picked up all these extra medicines, and I ended up needing them all. So, really close. I mean, you save about 40 seconds, which in a run where there's not that much time save ever in the game, it's actually pretty huge, pretty monumental. I just do it more so that I can say that I've done it on, on a run. But, anyways, so, Learning Lab, thanks so much, man, I appreciate it. Exocomma, you saw, man, it's close. Because I got hit with that, the middle worm's attack, I couldn't move down fast enough to ensure I got both attacks off without being out of range. So that was a little bit my fault. I could have positioned myself better. So sorry, guys, but it's hard. It really is hard. Nobody's ever done it except for me the one time. So it just kind of out of however many attempts. So this fight is actually pretty weird. She has two attacks at her disposal. One of them being the swipe you see there that does a lot of damage, but is the fastest attack that she has. The second one being an attack where she floats up into the air, and that is very, very slow. You don't ever want to see that because it usually... Oh, wow, great fight. It usually costs you 5-6 seconds as opposed to the melee attack, but it's a lot safer, so if you're worried, you just stand far away from her, which will force her to go up. And that way, if you don't have... if you're not full health, you didn't have the ability to... You didn't have the medicine saved up or anything like that, you can actually make the fight safer in exchange for a little bit of time. But right here we got the fast fight, which is really, really good. And we had great crits. That's why she died a turn early, so that's great. Usually you see 4 attacks from her as opposed to the 3. But we're good to go. And that's going to be the end of actual gameplay on day 2. For now, we just have some story-driven cutscenes. So I'm going to mash. I'm going to eat some pizza rolls. If there's any questions you guys got, or some dank puns or memes, absolutely feel free to toss them at me. I actually quite prefer the PSP as far as mashing is concerned. I feel like it's way easier to mash on the PSP than it is on, say, like an a PlayStation controller. The buttons are very soft. Death Stranding is lit. Why don't you toss some dank memes onto us for a change? I run Parasite Eve, so obviously I'm not the most creative or funny person in the world. Just a guy with the right amount of self-loathing and right amount of free time. So as you can see, that was Daniel's son. Now Daniel is your police partner. You remember him from the car traveling the speed of light. He's actually the dopest character in the whole game. He does a lot of really, really cool stuff, and in the end, he does some straight up bro stuff. So you'll grow to love Daniel. Daniel's pretty much everyone's favorite character. But his son is the kid in the Hugh Hefner looking robes that's wearing red. He's just completely dressed in red, despite them living in a bad part of New York. I don't know if maybe the game was just, I don't know, in Japan they don't understand New York gangs or what have you, but yeah, there it is. He's got a jailhouse fade, he's wearing all red. They look like Hugh Hefner robes. He's got shorts on in the middle of the snow. Pretty much just a gangsta, through and through. And his dad is struggling to get his son to just act right. As we all do, obviously, with our children. So here is, basically they're going to throw a bone to Final Fantasy by calling this dog Shiva. Oh, man. But yes, this is Shiva. Wouldn't be a Square game without Shiva in it. She's a German Shepherd police dog, and my least favorite part of this entire game. So, a little foreshadowing for you. Now this cutscene is about 48 seconds long, and it's usually a pretty good spot to go to the bathroom. There's a couple of other cutscenes in the game that are around the same period of time lengthwise, and that I use advantageously to pee or whatever. So this guy right here is probably the most important story figure. Outside of the main character, this guy is, it might even be more important than Aya. His name is Maida, or Maida, whatever you, however you want to pronounce it. And he was one of the researchers that worked with the Japanese doctor in the original Parasite Eve novel and movie. And he was there for the fallout and the chaos that took place in Japan when the Parasite Eve cell, the Eve cell as it's called, took over and pretty much ran rampant. So after having dealt with that and fixed all of that, he's curious if maybe, due to his looking through some medical records, that possibly the same situation could be going on in America. So what he does is he goes over to America and finds out that it is indeed taking place in some way, shape, or form in New York, and decides to go to the source of the issue and lend his help and his advice and his knowledge the best he can. And with him comes not only a bunch of like shout outs to the movie and the book, but a lot of the story furthering the plot continuation actually comes from his mouth and some of the information that he gives. Yeah, my gaming room is actually right next to the toilet. Like it's my bedroom. It's a master bedroom, so it has a bathroom in it. So I can literally just jump over my desk, go pee, come back. Occasionally I eat crap when I that's a poor word to use. Sometimes I eat it. No, that's also not great. When I jump over my desk, sometimes I fall over. So it loses me time, but that's okay. I can usually do it in 48 seconds. Speedrun strats. So this is actually Maida's rented apartment. This is a pretty standard New York City apartment. This can be yours for a measly $3,000 a month on average. Complete with dumpster fire, empty 40s, and a box of ammo in the right corner for when you're just tired of it all. But as you can see, the last 5 or 6 minutes are just entirely mashing of day 2. It's where not only that Maida gets introduced, but storyline gets explained a little bit. Oh, definitely no hand wash. I would hate to see this what this controller looks like in a black light setting. If you have time to wash your hands, you didn't need to pee bad enough to stop doing the run in the first place. Nobody's actually said anything to me about it in the past. Like, oh, I gotta go to the bathroom. Because they can hear me close the door and they don't hear the sync run. I'm like, thanks guys for being so understanding. Hand wash %, man. Oh no, that would be too much. I would actually lose time. I use that soap that's really oily too, so like you gotta like scrub extra long in order to like get it completely off your hands. So I don't have obviously the fastest hardware in order to run that game competitively. New York apartment joke is more true than you guys understand. Yeah, that's why I do it. I say that as scripted as I am. I say that joke every single time we get to that screen in every marathon I've ever run. And the reason for that is because it is sad and true. And anybody in New York that's in the chat is always like saying, or they say 3,000 a month. That's cheap. Can't believe I played this game and beat the Chrysler Tower at that. Now it seems painful. Oh my goodness. The Chrysler Tower we actually won't be doing. That's a New Game Plus feature. We're doing just the New Game Run, which is definitely the most popular category. The Chrysler building is ugly. That category is only about 20-something minutes. And the reason for that is you have to get maxed out stats on your gun and armor so that you take very little damage and do like max. But the Chrysler building floors actually randomize themselves, so it's super hard to like deal with. On top of that, the fights in there are very, very hard. So you got to just grind out New Game Plus runs until you get your stats to that point. So yeah, you'll probably never see me run that category, or any category besides this one, honestly, and most people don't. So here, we break into a gun store. Daniel Angelina Jolie curves that bullet right around us, and we break into a weapon shop. So, real good police work. I picked up the M11, which is very, very important, and I'll explain it to you guys here in a second. But let me do this first, because if I screw this up, the whole run is lost. Okay. Perfect. Okay, so the M11 and all the SMGs in this game, if you put Rate of Fire 2 on them, will inherit a unique ability on the gun. And that unique ability is that it will occasionally fire an extra bullet free of penalties. Now, every time you add Rate of Fire, whether it be 2, 3, 4, 5, every additional bullet, the percentage goes down. So Rate of Fire 2, the bullets are doing 66% damage. Rate of Fire 3, it drops even further. 4, 5, 6, it all drops a percentage to make sure that the gun's not firing 100% damage bullets and 9 of them, you know what I mean? But, so Rate of Fire 2 is the fastest damage-wise. It's the fastest for the animation to finish, for your actual shooting of the gun. And the SMG adds an extra unpenalized bullet to that as well. Now that's super, super important, and the reason for that is that it, as a trade-off for that extra unpenalized bullet, you can no longer target stuff. Like, you can't choose your target. The target is randomly chosen by the gun as soon as you input the command. And there's a couple of issues that come along with that. Mostly it's not too big of a problem, to the point where we actually just deal with it, because it's that extra bullet does add so much damage and saves so much time, especially in single target fights. But from this point forward, you'll see me kind of stand, as opposed to standing right next to enemies to ensure that my crit rate is going to be at its max. You'll see me kind of stand in the middle of fights, so that I know that I'm in the best possible spot to, no matter what my gun chooses to attack, I'm probably, like, my accuracy is in its best position. So that's very, very important in learning the run. Another thing is that the random targeting, it chooses where it's going to fire after, like, right as you input the first attack. So say you attack enemy A, and 3 bullets are supposed to come out and kill enemy A. Well, enemy A died in 1 bullet because he had, like, very little health left. Instead of targeting, like, the next enemy, it'll just not fire the rest of those bullets. So sometimes you can get pretty bad luck and shoot 1 bullet into an enemy, kill it, and just basically waste the other 2 bullets of your turn, which slows down some fights, makes some fights more dangerous, obviously. And it's not too, other than that, it's not, like, too limiting. Like, you can pretty much position yourself in most of the fights on the smaller screens of this game without having to worry about accuracy. The only time where it's a real big issue is on very large screens where the enemy have a lot of space to move, or against Centipede, which is a multi-target boss fight later on in the game. How long is this run? World record is about 2:56:35, I think. This run, I estimated 3 hours and 10 minutes, but it's probably going to be closer to like 3:05, or maybe I estimated 3:05. I don't know. It should hopefully be less than 3:05. 3 hours and 5 minutes. That would be a pretty good marathon run. Is Parasite Eve a Capcom game? No, Parasite Eve is a Square, Soft, Enix, whatever you want to call it, game. It was made after Final Fantasy VII, in between Final Fantasy VII and 8. It was released in Japan in March of 1998. So in March of 2018, it'll be 20 years old. So I plan on doing like a bunch of really stupid categories I come up with, and probably like a 20-hour stream. So if you guys are interested in that, mark it in your calendars. I don't know exactly when in March, but it will happen. a lot of viewers want me to go through the entire game using nothing but the Melee Club, so we're probably going to do that. I'll probably do all bosses, which is not a category nobody's ever done. We'll find some fun things to do. So right here, Maida explains a little bit more of the storyline. He basically shows one of his cells, which is a standard cell with no resistance to the Eve style of genetic mutation. And you can see that his cell was attacked by the other cells. And this is Aya's cell. So he's basically showing her that she does, in fact, have some sort of immunity to the mutation. They're not 100% positive still. But it does prove that she is resistant to it to an extent. Which we kind of already knew, but it's kind of just reassuring you or confirming your beliefs up until this point. So we come to the doctor's office that we were in earlier to do this. And it's funny because we break into his office while he's not in here. And then as he shows up here in a second, they turn around and pull guns on him. They're like, "What are you doing here?" He's like, "What do you mean, what am I doing here? I work here. What are you doing here?" And they're like, "Forget about it. We need you to explain something to us." And he's like, "Alright, whatever." But the only skip in the entire game is about to take place. Daniel is going to go to the TV, or to the computer screen, the flashing seizure box over there. And Maida's going to try and come and turn it off. Now, if you mash at a certain pace that nobody knows what it is, certain frame, you'll actually skip the professor going over there to turn the screen off, and it saves a whole second. So it's real quality stuff. I remember when these graphics were great. Yeah, I remember like this in Legend of Dragoon. I was like, what? We will never ever top this. This is the future. They are so good. I mean, the game has actually aged quite well. So here's where the clamp skip takes place. Let's see if we get it. Nope, we didn't get it. So the clamp skip would save you seeing him come into frame and turn off the monitor. That's it. It's just for fun more than anything. Although there was a time where me in second place were decided by less than a second, so it actually would have dictated it. I don't remember what happened between the clamp skip and those runs, but it's not outside of reason. For a long time, we didn't know if sub 3 hours was possible, and I was able to get a 2:59:59. So that was 2 instances where 1 second decided a lot. And so, you know, every second counts, I guess. But if you couldn't tell by his flashing computer screen and his ugly demeanor, Clamp is what would be considered an antagonist in this game. He's a real piece of work. Every time you see him, it's usually because there's like a 7 or 8 minute mashing cutscene. So every time we see him, we are very sad. Doesn't even look like a game, just looks like real life. Hell yeah. I remember when I turned into a Dragoon in Legend of Dragoon, like my mind was blown. I celebrated it like somebody celebrates a goal in a professional soccer match. Like I took my shirt off and I ran around my room. It was 2 hours, 59 minutes, 59 seconds, and I don't remember the milliseconds actually. So Maida gives you an item that's part of the storyline. You can't not accept it from him, and it just permanently takes up a spot in your inventory until we're able to move it here in a second. But he has other items that he gives you throughout the game that we never come back to the police station to get rid of. We just have to deal with. So Maida is kind of like Drippy and Ni no Kuni, where everybody dislikes him, but you know he tries. So I'll actually explain how fights work, because this is probably the most important part as far as times are concerned in the speedrun, comparing from one run to the next. So, as you can see, the fights are fixed. If you run on a screen where a fight is going to be, you're getting that fight 100% of the time. Every single time you run on that screen for the first time, you're guaranteed to have that fight. It's going to pop no matter what. It's not like other Final Fantasy games where it's tied to, you know, just a foot count or anything like that. Make sure I don't have any junk. Cool, perfect. However, when you backtrack through a screen you've already been on and had a fight on, every time you go through, the chance of you getting that fight again goes down by half. So right there, we had a 50% chance to get that same fight we just got. Actually, a little bit harder. Every additional time you go through, usually the fight is a little bit more difficult. It adds an enemy or something like that. So right there, we are already 0 for 1 on we are 0 for 1 on random encounters, which is good. Right, there's 2 in the NYPD, which is this leg we're doing right now, and this is the other one. So we're guaranteed to get this fight, but when we come back through this room, we can. Oh man, we have a 50% chance of getting it again. There's only one screen that we go through in the entire game. We go through more than twice. We go through it 3 times, and naturally, it goes from 100% to 50% to 25%. So a lot of this run is not getting these repeat encounters. However, the issue is that at the end of the game we need to be a certain level in order to fight the in-game bosses. So we actually have to take a certain amount of fights. So perfect RNG is not getting a single random encounter, or repeat encounter rather, but getting the most advantageous ones, the ones that give the most EXP. So 1 for 2 in the NYPD, that's not great. It's pretty standard though. Oftentimes I'll reset for a 0 encounter NYPD attempt. It doesn't lose you the run, and it can be made up later on, obviously, if you just don't get another encounter. But you want to see 0 encounters here, because the fights yields very little experience points. The items they drop aren't great, so it's better just to get all your encounters at the end of the game when the enemies are the strongest and give you the most points. I'm actually currently learning the speedrun for the second one. I have not played it like speedrun wise, personally. Oops. So right there we equip the CM vest. And I'm going to explain the CM vest real quick because it's one of the more important parts of understanding battle in this game. CM vest does a lot of things. The first thing being that when you fall below 30% health, the CM vest will automatically use a medicine out of your inventory and heal you. So it's very, very important to know kind of like what that threshold is in some of the more big fights, especially like the one coming up, because you know whether or not, if based on the damage that you're going to take, if you'll die or you'll fall into that threshold and get yourself healed. So it's important because not only does it heal you, but it thins your inventory by allowing you to use medicine that's in your inventory, making your inventory lighter without actually having to menu. It just does it on its own. So that's super important. The other thing is that, as I explained contact damage earlier, say in Shiva, in the fight that's coming up, I can probably put it on display a little bit better, but if, say, it gets me to 31% of my health, and I need to take just a little bit more damage to pop that medicine, and if I don't, I might die, what we will do is just bump into an enemy and take a little bit more damage from the contact damage, forcing us to heal. So you can kind of manipulate taking damage on purpose in order to heal yourself. It's interesting. We've not. The museum is going to be towards the end of the game. It's about 2.5 hours in. 2 hours in, rather. So this is a crazy cutscene. If you're a fan of dogs, you know, sorry. So the police chief who's guarding Daniel's kid, he runs out of ammo, but it takes a good while before we get there to help him out, which has to mean that he just literally just bare knuckle boxes that demon, which is real metal. Oops. Now what happens, and the reason you're seeing me take those menus so slow, is I'm doing it on purpose. When you use a tool on a weapon to remove its stats and place it on another gun, you actually lose the gun that the stats are coming off of. So right there I wanted to pull a few of the stats off of the G19 and put it on the M11. Now by doing so, that completely destroys the G19. Wow, are you serious? So if you accidentally destroy the gun you're using for the run because you're pulling stuff off, you're in rough shape. Let's see if I have any junk. Yeah, that's what I thought. So we have a lot of medicine. Hopefully we don't die in this fight. This is my least favorite fight in the entire game, because I usually don't pick up revives in my runs, so it obviously is a lot more difficult because Shiva has a very, very high chance to kill you. Now the reason she's so annoying is because she has 3 heads, so multi-targeting. We can't just eliminate one at a time. We have to just pray that the gun shoots the most advantageous targets for us. On top of that, she has a... oh wow, so that's actually not good. She has a weird set of abilities that allow her the ability to really, really advantageously dodge popping your CM vest. So at the very first circular attack that came on the ground that you saw, half healths you. It actually, on very, very rare occasions, will actually just, I need to take damage twice, so I'm not going to be able to pop it here. It only does a quarter of your health, which is what it did at the beginning of this fight, which still makes it difficult. But then so on top of being able to half health you, she has the ability to then do a bite that can do more than half your health. So if she half healths you, then immediately bites you, you die. And then she has a laser beam attack that does very, very wide range of damage. And to make it all worse, she can heal herself. And every time you see her heal herself, you lose basically 2 turns. Now, this is the 4th heal we've seen in this fight, so that is really, really bad. The 5th heal, oh my god. 6 heals is the worst I've ever seen. Let's see if we can beat it. So right there she did 72 damage, which would have really punished me had I been at half health. So, not a great Shiva fight by any stretch, but we didn't die, so that's nice. Not getting the ultimate junk item? No, I don't. In the speedrun, that actually takes like a time period for him to make that gun after you turn in all the junk, which would take so much work. And, yeah, it's just not something that we have the time for, honestly. We can beat the game with the strats we have now, but in the casual playthrough, yeah, junk is used to kind of make other weapons. But in this run, it just exists to bother us. I like that the weird zombie virus made the dog grow 2 extra heads. Yeah, exactly. So I have some theories with Shiva, but because we use the SMG, I can't really test them. But I think that she is limited to, based on the heads she has, allows her to use 1 move. So each head is worth a move, and then her circular attack is just a move she can use at all times. Because sometimes she stops using a move once you kill one of the heads. Now, because I have no idea what head dies, there's no animation that shows you which one is dead or anything like that. You kind of just have to assume. You know one died because she roars, but you don't know which one or anything. And because it randomly targets, I have no idea. But that fight can go really, really badly, really quickly. In fact, it goes badly more often than it goes well. You're either losing time or you're dying, and that's pretty much, it's very rare that you ever save time and have a really good fight on that. Why no Japanese? No Japanese because text is displayed in full blocks in this game, so actual Japanese text doesn't actually save any time. So we all run the English version, as well as the English version being available on the PSN for digital, which on the PSP is the fastest way to run the game. All in all, the run's going pretty safe, so that's nice. Just to put things in perspective, we're probably less than halfway through the run, and I think I'm like already 4 minutes behind, three and a half minutes behind the world record. Some of that being safety strat, some of that being bad RNG. I probably would have reset 2 or 3 times during this run, just personally. So that tells you just how much time save and loss there is between, misplays or playing safe, wasting turns to heal and getting repeat encounters. There is an in-game timer in this game, which is why we wait until after the credits to do our final split, despite it being like 15 minutes after your last actual inputted command. But at the same time, in-game time doesn't actually do anything, because if you safety save and die and reload, your in-game timer is ruined. And if you are on the world map, your in-game timer is not ticking, and during cutscenes. So a lot of people can have really weird in-game times despite having like either good or bad leaderboard times, if that makes sense. So here's another one, a situation where Maida gives you something you can't get rid of, and we are upset about it. She says, "I'll cherish it forever," but ultimately we just hate him for it, and we wish he would stop. Which is pretty much how my parents felt about raising me as a kid. So we run in here, we talk to this little ghost girl we've been seeing everywhere, who will get explained a little bit later in the run. But did you see what I wrote about the Japanese tourist? Missing out on the best joke in the game, a Japanese tourist speaking Japanese to American cops speaking Japanese and them not understanding him because they think he's Chinese. Oh man. Yeah, that is true. I actually never considered that. There is one runner who runs on Japanese, but he's an actual Japanese runner. His name is Pekoran, and I believe he has the world record right now for the Chrysler category. He's like one of 3 people or something like that. But he is a cool guy. But yeah, I've unfortunately never played in Japanese. I'm not a big fan of the sound or cutscenes in this game anyways. I kind of just don't pay attention to them. So I would be losing a little bit of value. But that is pretty hilarious, because yeah, they say all that, like they have no idea that he's Japanese, they think he's Chinese, and then that guy bursts into flames. So it's crazy. This game sometimes just doesn't care about anything. So the reason you saw me run that funky path is because I was dodging an encounter up there. There's like a load trigger that you can hit. So when I started running the game, there was actually a reset point about an hour and 20, or actually the times back then it was closer to an hour and a half. But halfway through the run, 100% reset. It's a 50-50 chest, and if we didn't get the gun that we wanted out of the box, then we would reset. And Primus, who is an incredible runner of this game, came up, wrote the most incredible speedrun route notes you'll ever see in your life, that are pretty much the Bible for learning how to run this game. he came up with a backup strategy for marathons and for, I mean, really runs in general, where it loses you a little bit of time, a little bit more than we thought initially because of a new strategy, but loses you a little bit of time, but you can at least finish the run 100% consistently. So there's no more resets in the game, thankfully, which allows us to, you know, obviously do more marathons and things like that with it, but yeah, we used to reset literally halfway through the game. And 3 hours is not the longest run ever. I mean, I run definitely longer games than that, but a lot of people were completely turned off by the fact that a 3-hour run could just be could just be lost halfway through. So shouts to Primus, put in a lot of hard work. He did a lot for this game, especially for the route. Took whole minutes off it. So in here, we actually have to watch our inventory. A lot of these enemies will give you medicine, which sounds good, but at the same time, will fill up your inventory to a point where you can't pick up some of the key items. As you can see here, as I'm displaying for you, not on purpose. Oops, there we go. If you pick up a key item and you can't because your inventory is full, you finish the animation and then you have to try again. So right there you can see that that would lose me a lot of time. Whereas if we use the CM vest to kind of like, we take damage on purpose, so that I do a lot of that in here. I kind of force medicine to get used so that I know for a fact that I'll have inventory space. And right there I got some invincibility frames. That just happens randomly. Nobody really understands why. Thanks for showing you guys. Yeah, all done on purpose. So right here is the first repeat encounter you can get in the hospital. There's a total of 4 of them. So far we are 2 for 3 on repeat encounters, which is not good. Usually, if I end up with more than 3 leaving the hospital, I'll reset 3 out of the 6. You want 50% odds or better, especially at this point, when they mean a lot less. Ah, bummer. So I use medicine there to get rid of some of the crap I got in my inventory. Some of the weaker medicine is going to be replaced by stronger medicine. So right here is the chest I was talking about. It's 100%, it's a 50-50 chance, like in 100%, it's 50-50. That's so poor of me to explain it like that. But it is absolutely 50% both ways, whether or not you get the micro Uzi, which is the superior gun, or the M10, which is the inferior gun. Now you can finish the run with both of them nowadays after Primus's route adjustments, but we want to see micro Uzi, and we saw M10. And the reason that sucks so bad is because the reason it sucks so bad is because the M10 has limited space, so we actually can't equip some of the better things on the gun. We can only get a certain amount of crap on there. So instead of having ice bullets later on and quick draw later on, which we do if we have the micro Uzi, we have to just deal with this. Now ice bullets and quick draw both save a good amount of time, so we actually don't have a 100% run. We don't have a 100% run, mainly because none of us really know what that would entail. There's a lot of like small items, there's a lot of collectibles and things like that in the game, but they're very weird in the way that they work. There's actually a glitch where you can get like all of the cards, which are collectible in this game, from a corner here in the hospital. And you just stand in a corner and click X a bunch and it gives you all the cards. So would it entail killing all the bosses? Because there's a lot of enemies we don't even fight. There's a lot of places we don't go. So we don't really know what a 100% run would look like, which is why there is no 100% run currently. But I'm considering doing an all-boss run, doing a run with just the club, things like that, for when I do the 20th anniversary. So right here, I'm going to show you guys something funny. If you actually turn the power on and then repair the wires, she shocks the crap out of herself. Then she gets back up and has to do it over again. See, Chrysler Building is not... I don't think Chrysler Building is available to you until after you beat the game. So in order to do a 100% run, I don't think it could include Chrysler Building. Now, if you're talking about for my for that stream, will I try to do a Chrysler Building run, like in and of itself? Yeah, I probably will. It won't be competitive though, because I won't have to save file, but I'll at least do it for funsies. If it wasn't for Pref, everyone would Parasite leave. Oh, that's a good one, man. I appreciate that. Appreciate the kind words and a dank pun. It's a pretty fire comment. What a dumbass. Yeah, she is stupid. It's amazing she didn't die, but I guess it's pretty much any weird thing that happens in this game that doesn't make any sense, the game explains away by saying, it's just because of the mitochondria. Chrysler Building is New Game Plus, yes. Loose wires are the powerhouse of the cell. So this fight is scripted. It's 100% happens the same way every time. That guy will always open up with that green attack, and then you just run in a half circle and kill them both. It's like one of the only screens in the entire game that's 100% scripted like that, and I think it's because it automatically runs you to the corner as soon as the fight's over. So maybe that feature is what makes that fight go the same way every time. I don't know. Electric Reset, good to see you, man. Good to see you. Oh, you know what? I should be fine. I shouldn't die, and if I do, I have 2 revives, so I'll be okay. Menuing is one of the biggest time losses in this game. You lose a lot of time menuing throughout the entirety of the game, like a surprising amount that you would not usually expect. Now, I just got slowed, which is probably the worst debuff in the whole game, outside of blindness. It's close race. Blindness and slow are both really, really awful. This fight is one of the 4 encounters that you can get twice. Naturally, we don't want to see it because it's probably one of the worst repeat encounters in the entire game. I would consider it the 2nd worst encounter you can get. But the 3 screens that we just came through, we will be traveling back through. So those are the 3 screens. We have an opportunity to either take another fight, or to not take a fight. You know, saves time. At least you can hit them with slow. Yeah, exactly. I hate blindness. And one of the weird features of this game is that, so if say an enemy poisons you, when you kill that enemy, it's very likely that he will drop the curative item that gets rid of that status effect that he gives you. So if an enemy poisons you, you have a pretty high chance of getting a poison cure item from the enemy when you kill him. So because that's how it works, we fight an enemy that blinds you later on, but because it takes you killing the enemy to get the item that fixes what he gives you, you're just stuck there, and for 4 turns you can't do anything but miss. So it's really, really sucky that that's kind of how that's laid out. So we didn't get that encounter, that's good. Dark Hunter Death, what's going on, man? So we are 3 for 5 on repeat encounters thus far. It's not good. In a perfect world, we don't see a single one encounter up until this point. This is Parasite Eve, so perfect worlds are rare in these speedruns. 4 out of 6. We got all except 1 in the hospital, and 1 of the 2 in YPD. That's bad. That's really bad. So right here you see me taking all this damage, and the reason is because the next fight I want to be at a pretty high health total, so I'm going to let my medicine pop. It also helps to loosen up my inventory a little bit, so that's good. Nurse looks like the Joker from The Dark Knight. A lot of the characters in this game lack really defining facial features, so some of them look kind of silly. Because their bodies are sometimes tied to text prompts. As you can see, the nurse's arms and stuff like that, they move in really weird fashions because we're mashing as fast as we can. Just got back from buying groceries. I really had hoped to catch it. Oh, hey, what's up, Guy Lancer? Good to see you, man. I've played this game and beat it. Also played 2 and beat it. Those are, both of them are really incredible. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. I played and beat the first one. The second one I'm still playing around with. A lot of viewers have asked if I will attempt to learn the second one for the speedrun purposes. So I'm currently I just went out and bought a hard copy of it, and I'm currently in the process of learning the second one. So eventually we'll see Parasite Eve 2 runs on my stream, but it's just hard to learn for me because it's not an RPG like this one is, so it's really weird. But they're both incredible games in their respective genres. People who have played them are usually pretty massive fans of them. So this elevator has 2 floors, or 3 floors, I'm sorry. Basement, lobby, and 13th. The architects were ridiculous. Yeah, Parasite Eve 2 is not an RPG. Parasite Eve 2 is basically a Resident Evil clone, and plays as such. It has the tank controls, it has the survivalist inventory management, and all that good stuff. So it is 100% a survival horror game, whereas this game is an RPG through and through. So what you're going to see me do here is energy shot. Now, energy shot uses however much parasitic energy you have, which is what that red and green bar underneath my health is. That's basically your mana. It uses all of it and does damage based on a percentage of how much you have. Now what's important to know about that is that the percentage goes up dramatically when you use it at max charge. So you saw me there use all of my parasite energy to do a big amount of damage to the mixed man, making sure that he only lives for 1 more hit. Now when you use any ability that uses up all of your parasite energy, it puts you into a half-second stasis afterwards, so you can just sit there and take damage. So you gotta be smart about when you use it, and very seldomly does it actually save time or help us out. There's a couple times when we'll use it strategically. Mixed men being one of them. Mixed men are one of the more annoying enemies in the game, because they have 2 attacks. One is to release a ball, which basically becomes an additional target on the screen. It does a little bit of damage. And the other is that circular attack, which slows you. So because our gun randomly targets, adding extra targets and slowing your attack speed are 2 really unfortunate things for an enemy to be able to do to you. I'm about 35 minutes into the speed run. I don't know how far. I'm not playing it casually. I never have. So I can't speak to how far I am as far as like in that context. So I can actually die here. I'm at a pretty unfortunate amount of health. Okay, I should be fine now. How far are you? 90 minutes in at the hospital. Yeah, that's, oh my goodness, that's my fault. Wow. I guess I could have done all my menuing before this, but that's whatever. Yeah, so an hour and 35 minutes in at the hospital. The hospital is about halfway through the game, so we're pretty much halfway through the run at this point. Where you pick up the micro Uzi or the M10 is more or less halfway, so we might be a couple minutes past that. This game spooked me way too much as a kid, but I really enjoy the theme and mechanical decisions they went in with both Parasite Eves. Yeah, and you know what? The game did well despite being super niche, super odd, completely different than what Square was um, used to making at least. It never released in any European regions, so this game was never on any PAL consoles. It was only released in Japan and the USA. And it went greatest hits despite being one of the less selling titles from Square as a company. But it's definitely one of my favorite games of all time. It is my baby, and I've speedrun it more than anybody else in the world, just because I love the game so much, and it is so terrific, and it is so unique. So I am a little bit biased, but I think it's such a gem that a lot of people will never get to play because it wasn't a big title. It kind of was in the shadow of Final Fantasy 7 and 8, which were released like a year um, in front of and behind it. It was just kind of forgotten about. People were still playing 7 when 8 was ready to come out, and Parasite Eve kind of got skipped over. And they changed everything about it as soon as Parasite Eve 2 came out, so it wasn't even that you could just wait for the second one so that you could play the game you liked again. You kind of just had to play this one because it was the only one that was like it, honestly, and it still is. And the same flaws that it had, the same things people didn't like about it as an initial game release, are a lot of what people really, really love about it now. The combat system took caught a lot of flack. People thought it was ridiculous and that it wasn't turn-based and that it was kind of silly. And because you have one person and it's in a instanced style of encounters and things like that, people didn't really get behind it. Most of the one-player party games, like where you have one person in your party, were things like Resident Evil and such, where you you ended fights really quickly without having to have them long and drawn out and strategize. It was just fire 5 bullets and this enemy dies, because that's how survival horror games work. The movement and storyline were at least highly touted because they were based on a best-selling novel in Japan. But so the things that made the game bad are exactly what people love about its uniqueness now in retrospect. Kind of looking at it in hindsight, what people considered trashy about it is the same reason it is completely unique and individual. So a remake or whatever would actually probably not do us any good. It would possibly ruin the game. We wouldn't like it. So it's in an interesting spot where, if they remade it, people wouldn't be happy. Had they made another one, people wouldn't have been happy, just because it was such a niche time period, and it kind of got overshadowed by games at the time. Streamer would say Bacteria is the only culture you have. Bacteria is definitely the only culture I have. I'm not a cultural guy. I try to pronounce people's names and I do a terrible job, so please forgive me if your name is something not granted, I was raised in mostly Texas. I went to school in Texas. All I really know is guns and Whataburger, so please don't hold that against me. There are rocket launchers. Yeah, the rocket launcher is very slow and it does not as much damage as you would hope. Um, so we actually avoid getting it. On top of that, you go to an optional area, the warehouse, and you fight a pretty difficult boss, which is all extra stuff that we don't do in this run. Um, just for a gun that isn't actually superior than something we can make towards the end. Oh, yikes. So I'm actually at a... Ooh, that was lucky. He hit me with a really low damage roll right there. I actually got the in-game... hold on, let me read this. So many cool FMVs in this game. Oh man, the game is called the Cinematic RPG for a reason, and that's because it's exactly what it is. It is a game that plays like a movie, because there was a movie made about it. It's just incredible. It's an incredible game. The cutscenes are something that people just didn't see at the time period. As I said earlier, it's Square's first ever mature title, so that is a huge milestone, and could kind of be attributed to why it didn't sell too well. Like in the time period, video games were mainly a kids' entertainment system, so making games that were more of like the adult variety, as far as the rating system, where people used to really take the rating system seriously. My parents wouldn't buy me T for Teen games because I wasn't 13. Um, and they wouldn't buy me M for mature games because I never grew up. But maybe that's a little bit as to why it didn't see as much success as it probably should have. Actually got the game imported because my folks used to travel a lot. Oh man, that's amazing. That's amazing. That's actually really lucky. I have a lot of viewers that say the same thing. That say that they got it shipped and stuff like that because it seemed like a cool game. So Parasite Eve is, I never got Parasite Eve 2 because I lost interest when I heard they changed the battle system, which made the first one unique. Absolutely. Like, if you think about it, the whole, like, active you control movement in the middle of a fight while you're waiting for each other to attack, that's how all battle systems are right now. And this was really the first game that had any kind of active style of battle within reason. Obviously, Vagrant Story and things like that are kind of in that same range. But that was really, like, the groundwork for, like, the battle systems we see in, like, the more current Final Fantasies, where it's open worldy and more active. And that was what people hated about this game. So it's crazy to see that we've kind of come full circle and started to appreciate that more, because we value the importance of, like, micromanaging stuff. Oh, I always do that when I'm trying to read chat. I always do that. It's hilarious. Doubt you could say my name, Crazy Jesse. Oops, just going to Chinatown. Valkyria Chronicles. Nah, it's a different style of game. PSP Parasite game. Oh yeah, the third birthday, better known as the Turd birthday. For people who are Parasite Eve 1 and 2 fans, we actually pretend that game doesn't exist. It's really, really, really bad. It was basically a fan servicey sexualization of Parasite Eve, and even that couldn't make the game entertaining. So that just tells you how bad of a game it actually was. Wow, the double triple crits. That's insane. I actually never got around to watching the Parasite Eve movie. How is it? Bad, like 90% of video Hidden Gem. So it's actually, if you've played Parasite Eve, I highly, highly suggest you go watch the movie. Like I said, it's on YouTube in its entirety. Now it is in Japanese, so you'll have to read subtitles, and it's pretty poor resolution because of its age, and it's on YouTube. But it's super cool to see kind of like how the stories intertwine with one another. And if you care at all about Parasite Eve lore and stuff like that, it's a good watch. I would recommend it. It's not too long. It's pretty cheesy, but it is a really, really interesting spin on the story that you're used to in the game for sure. Day 5. Yep, we only have Day 5 and Day 6. Day 5, however, is the longest day in the entire game by a large margin, so we will be spending most of our time here. There's a lot of stuff we do. I didn't even know it existed back then. My mother's boyfriend is a huge horror game fan and picked some stuff up. Parasite Eve and Fatal Frame. Man, those are two great games. Yeah, but I don't think... Yeah, you're right. Both of those were NTSC onlys. Yeah, Parasite Eve 2 has a clean battle system, and I enjoy the way... You know what? Parasite Eve 2 is great. And for the people who enjoy the Resident Evil style of games, it's a lot of them would consider it better than the first. I, however, am more of an RPG kind of guy than I am a survival horror game. Like, I prefer Final Fantasy to Resident Evil and Silent Hill and things like that, So it really just depends on your taste, and that's kind of the cool part about this game, this franchise, is that you can, kind of choose your preference. Okay, so this fight is the blinding that I was talking about. Oh my god, I almost made it. So what we do here is we just try to run as far away from them as possible to give us the most time to dodge these sound waves. Now I was going to play greedy right there and try to get an attack off anyways, and as such, screw. So as you can see, you just miss a bunch. I'm just going to wait for it to wear off. It cannot stack, so that's important to know, that you can actually just once you get blinded once, you can get blinded multiple times, and it actually won't, like, increase the duration whatsoever. The sewers is a lot of speedrunners' least favorite part of the game. That fight that I just fought can take you like an extra... You can lose... I've lost like whole minutes in that fight. because this hallway is so narrow, it's very hard to dodge those blinding attacks. However, we have, now that we've killed an enemy that blinds, we, you know, as I said earlier, we received an item that cleans up blind, that gets rid of it. Now this next room, we're not guaranteed to get this encounter, and we didn't. So this is the worst encounter in the whole game. Thankfully, we didn't get it. So far we are 4 for 7 on repeat encounters. And now we are 4 for 8. So getting better, getting better. What is the link name? Oh, the movie. The movie is called Parasite Eve, I believe, and it's on YouTube. Just look up Parasite Eve movie. It's in a really solid 240p. You can also find it on some torrent sites. The novel you can actually order online still, so obviously it's in Japanese, but I'm pretty sure they probably have like an English translation somewhere. But I think the movie is just called Parasite Eve, I believe. I could be wrong. This is where I got stuck when I played Parasite Eve. Yeah, well, this Sewers is a difficult leg, honestly. Coupled with the fact that it's got one of the hardest bosses in the game at the end of it. Speedrunners hate this part of the game because it is just made up of time losses and bad RNG. Lots of cool gear in the sewers. Yeah, there is actually. So if I were to do an actual club percent, where I just use the melee weapon the whole game, there's a club. One of the melee weapons you pick up here would be probably what we finished the game with. I think it's the best melee weapon you can get without going into the post-game content. Oh, Gaia Lancer, I actually appreciate it, man. I really do. I read all of it. I looked up a lot of those games you were talking about, and piqued my interest quite a bit. So I'll consider looking over those, seeing what exists for them as far as like routes and guides and things like that on the speedrunning community. So I do appreciate that, man. I like them both equally. Yeah, I like this one better just because it's more my style. But the second one is great for the style of game that it is, absolutely. Wolf DMC will actually tell you that it's the best survival horror game, but that's usually up to his personal preference. PSX had a lot of experimental games. Yeah, absolutely. Most sewer levels suck in all games. Yeah, you're correct in that regard for sure. Why are the viruses gone? They all flew away. Oh man. Oh man. So not this cutscene, but the cutscene that was immediately before it is actually 41 seconds long, and it's a cutscene that I use the bathroom in a lot as well. Oh, what am I thinking? I'm gonna be so off now. I've actually never played a single Persona game, which as an RPG fan, I know that is basically like blasphemy. So, yeah, sorry to tell you. So by moving up this way, we actually skip an entire screen. Not a lot of people know about it, but you can actually, yeah, you just go up here and you skip a whole entire segment. I pick up that medicine 3 there just because there's a chest we're about to come across that doesn't always give you the medicine you want from it, and if it doesn't, it's better to just take that safety one, even though it's not really in the route. Why don't they get that you should just not go in the sewers? I don't know, man. It's really not rocket science. So we want to stay far away from this guy, which forces him underground. Usually you can kill him in one turn if you get lucky with crits. He almost always drops a Cure P, except for this time, and that could prove to be actually very, very problematic. Oh, great. So I'm going to heal with medicine here, depending on how much I have. So this is Centipede, guys. This is probably one of the worst bosses in the whole game. Um, as far as the speedrun is concerned, because of the random targeting and the way that all works, we really dislike doing this. He almost always opens up with that poison attack you saw right there, and I hardly ever dodge it, but right there I went way out of my way to make sure I did, because I actually don't have a poison curing item. Usually that mole that you fight right before, oh no! Please! Why you do this to me? Right before this fight gives you a poison cure item, and he didn't this time, so that's pretty unlucky. So right here is actually a cool strategy. So what I have done here is I corner him, and then as soon as he splits, I target, and it guarantees that all 3 bullets will be fired at the same target. Now it makes a huge difference when there's 4 targets on the screen. You can guarantee that one's going to be at a lower health threshold right off the bat. So we're already down to 3 targets, which is huge. Especially because I'm going to use Energy Shot as soon as, you know what, I'll do one of these first. As soon as my bar is charged, I'm going to use Energy Shot and get rid of another one. And that basically just micromanages this fight a little bit. It allows it to, I attacked the wrong thing. So that one might not actually die. But at least the fight is on a quicker pace now as a result. So it's actually really important to try to implement that strategy where, wow, this was a great centipede fight, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, that was such a good centipede, holy cow. Holy cow, that was a great centipede. Centipede does not usually go that well. Ooh. Now we pretty much just use as much medicine as we need. And we continue. So Centipede, as you saw, can go really ugly or really incredible. Like, I hardly ever see fights that go that incredibly. But it's important to get that little corner strategy so that you can get down to just 2 targets as quickly as possible, because that's what makes it a lot easier. Otherwise, you just stand in the middle and you hope that you hit the targets around you. So when everyone started talking about Persona 3, I laughed because it was so hard. Persona 1 on PlayStation might have been one of the worst games I ever played. Oh, goodness. So one of the weirdest disc swaps. It's not really story driven. It's not really after any kind of big, significant scene. It's just kind of in the middle of the game. Towards the end of the game, actually, but whatever. We swap a disc. There's 2 discs to Parasite Eve. I never played Personas, man, so not a single one of them. So I apologize for my ignorance in that regard. The German version of the new Wolfenstein removes his mustache and calls him Führer. Oh man, Wolfenstein. It looked cool though. I heard that the new Wolfenstein got a lot of really good reviews. I remember the original Wolfenstein, which was like a freaking an 8-bit game. They have laws about Nazi stuff in Germany. Yeah, I think they're all just trying to move past that. And people keep making Nazis like villains in video games. I'm like, come on guys, please. Said we're sorry. I remember when games came in multiple discs, even further back in like 60 floppy disks. Heck yeah, I remember some of those really fire MS-DOS games. Some of my favorite games ever were in MS-DOS. So right here is the museum. Probably one of the most rememberable points in the game, because in a casual playthrough you can get exceptionally lost in here. It's very big. There's a lot of really interesting fights and things that you get introduced to in this that you don't in any other part of the whole game, from earlier on or even afterwards. So the museum is probably my favorite part of the whole run, and it's most people's favorite part of a casual playthrough as well. Now granted, the scorpion that we face right off the bat sucks, and he's one of the worst enemies in the whole game, but luckily we deal with him real quick, and then we probably don't deal with him again. So the scorpion likes to counterattack as soon as you attack, and he will counterattack directly in front of himself. He has insane range. He has the ability to stun lock you with a high damage poison attack. What is he doing? I broke him. That was awesome. and he does just stupid damage. So scorpions are bad news. Now the museum is the first place that you see in the entire run where, so like right here, this fight, I was guaranteed to get this fight, but the actual creatures that make up the lineup of the fight can vary, and that's not true anywhere else in the game, just in like these segments of the museum. So instead of this fight, we could have gotten 2 dinosaurs, and instead of the 2 lizards, one dinosaur, and that's actually a lot faster. Especially if we have the ice bullets, which is the micro Uzi's requirement for the ice bullet strategy. And unfortunately, we can't. We got the worst gun of the 2, so. But now we have heal 3, so the run is a lot safer as far as just, you know, dropping big heals on yourself in between fights and things like that. Civilization. Yeah, that was on a bunch of floppy disks. I remember that. These guys really suck. These guys are the birds of the later half of the game, whereas you don't see birds anymore, you see these. They drop the same amount of junk, and they stun lock you the exact same way as well. So the next enemy we face is the armadillos. Now the armadillos are, if we have ice bullets, they're very simple, but they're actually kind of fun, because you can predict and kind of dictate their movement for them. And that makes them a little bit easier to kind of like line up and position advantageously. Don't nerd up my bad joke. How long is this run about? At world record pace, it's 2 hours and 56 minutes and some change. I gave a 3:05 estimate because that's usually what I finish marathons in. I do a lot of safety saves or safety strategies and stuff like that because this game is just so punishing. You can die so easily, and most of the time I don't pick up revive items in my runs, so things can go south real quick. Wow, man, this fight goes so slow when you don't get crits. But the armadillos drop either 2 medicine 4s and a full cure, or 3 medicine 4s. And we want to see the 2 medicine 4s. Or the 3 medicine 4s, rather, because full cure is useless. And they gave us the 3, so we're in really good shape. Four hours casually, I would consider that a really fast casual playthrough of this game, because there are about 4 or 5 different areas we don't even go to. Each with their own boss. So there's a lot of content we don't cover in the speed run. So right here, this fight can either be 1 or 2, and we got 1. So you can see, like, even if your repeat encounters you're doing well as far as like how many encounters you've gotten, extra ones at least, you can still see how you can get here, and the forced encounters can still lose you time just because you got the worst arrangement of the creatures that you fought. So in this screen you can get 2 armadillos, or you can get a single dinosaur, 2 armadillos being much slower but much more common. So it's crazy how much RNG and how much small, like just tiny adjustments add up in this game. Which is why a lot of people get frustrated with doing just runs after run after run after run. But it's a very easy game to learn, and it's a difficult game to master and get a really great time at. So it's got a huge window and gap in skill. But there's no skips, no glitches, nothing crazy difficult for you to learn. The notes that exist tell you absolutely everything, down to every single movement you need to make in the game. So Primus did the most incredible work with that guide. It's the Bible of Parasite Eve speedrunning. So shoutouts to Primus, and if you're interested in the run or want to join us in playing Parasite Eve, then absolutely go check that out. Even if you just want to casually play the speedrun strategies, you can do so because of how the notes are set up. I'll take that, I guess. So right here I'm going to menu, and the reason being is that the next enemy drops a very, very good medicine. One thing I failed to mention up until this point is that we were putting our bonus points into active, which is the ATB. And when I started running the game, they were putting them all into attack. So what I did was I did the math and figured out that there's actually a blend of ATB and attack that is the most statistically gives you the highest DPS. So after Centipede, we actually switch from ATB to putting our bonus points into attack. Yeah, we don't get pre-raise until like towards the end when it's not very useful, and it also slows the fights down quite a bit. Wish I still had my GameCube or Wii so that I could play Tales of Vesperia. I've never played any of the Tales games, but I've definitely been looking into it, especially lately. So pterodactyls are usually very, very easy enemies to kill. You can really easily dodge their abilities. They usually die in 2 or 3 turns. And usually when you see a pterodactyl, it's just one of them. I mean, always, but it's just one of them instead of like 3 lizards or whatever else could have been in that room instead. So right here we could have gotten 2 armadillos. So seeing pterodactyls is usually really, really good. The only thing they do is blind you, as far as like things that can bother you. But that's why I actually keep an extra Cure D or 2 on me, just to make sure that if it does happen, it doesn't faze me too much. The shotgun. Yeah, so we use the SMG, but at one point we will actually use a shotgun to modify our gun. And we'll have a shotgun handgun that does stupid damage and hits multiple targets. When I first started running the game, the other strategy that we used was we had a shotgun machine gun that fired like 3 or 4 bullets, like it was an SMG, but it had a spray. So it's super. You can make some really, really crazy stuff. The gun engineering in this game is quite awesome. So this fight could have been a single pterodactyl or double lizard being slower. Unless you have ice bullets, and it's probably faster, but I can't say for sure. So right here I'm gonna heal with medicine, primarily to get rid of some stuff in my inventory, as well as to prepare. I don't want to use my Parasite energy because we're about to face another scorpion, possibly, and I need to have. Yeah, okay. So what I'm going to do here is because we just leveled up, these lizards, these walking lizards you see, or the walking dinosaurs, they have 300 health, and we should be doing 306 or more right now with energy shot. Oh, I forgot we have the M10. So yeah, 322 is pretty standard for the M10 at this point. And that just gets it down to a one-on-one fight, which makes this fight a lot easier to manage. There's this poison attack that can stun lock you, as well as do a crap ton of damage. So it's a new strategy I came up with, kind of on accident. It's actually the first time it was ever used was in the world record video, so if you go check that out, you can kind of see it in its trial stages. But ice bullets are like poison bullets or acid bullets or whatever else, heat bullets in the game, where any enemy that's weak to that element will take an increased 25% damage. And there are a couple enemies in this run that are or in the museum that are weak to ice, and that is those big dinosaurs you're seeing me fight, and the armadillos. So when we have ice bullets, we're only able to put ice bullets on the M10 or the micro Uzi. Because I have the M10, I'm unable to actually use that strategy, which saves a good amount of time. So it's the slower route for sure, but you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. But yeah, so they take 25% increased damage, which means that I can usually kill a raptor in 1 turn, and if not, 2 turns. Whereas it's taken me almost 3 or 4 now, depending on the fight. So right here, this screen is so large that you can't actually put yourself in a position where you're guaranteed to hit them both, unless the armadillo is really, really kind about how he moves. I don't believe the estimate was updated. One baked potato. I think that's the estimate for Mirror's Edge still. So right here, because we actually can't one-shot either of these enemies with energy shot, I'm gonna fire a couple shots first. Then I'm gonna dump an energy shot into the scorpion. Because that should make him a couple of shots away from death. And the screen is so wide that it's really, really hard to keep them in a spot where I can guarantee that I will hit them every time I shoot. So even though it's slow to do energy shot, it's actually faster in some situations because it limits the opportunities to have screw-ups. The armadillo's straight line paths to you. Why is it hard to control him? Because he can straight line path to you, but he has he doesn't always, the angle that he comes at you from can sometimes be really, really disadvantageous. And the range, because that screen actually doesn't look as big as it is, but if you pay attention to like your range of your gun, which is, what did I just do? I thought I was done with it already. If you pay attention to the range of your gun, it's actually hard to cover more than a third of that screen at a time. So once he's done rolling, he can sometimes roll just right past you, unless you run him into a wall, which is kind of difficult to do at the same time as keeping the pterodactyl at bay. So it's just a really, really annoying fight. And it's because of the screen size more than anything else. Yeah, this game, a lot of people haven't played this game in years. It's very nostalgic, I noticed. A lot of people forget about it and they say, oh my god, Parasite Eve, haven't seen it in forever. And I'm over here just playing it every day in 2017 for some reason. This is one of the cooler cutscenes in the entire game. Definitely check it out. Some Jurassic Park level business going on. Yeah, actually, the casual playthrough, like in 10 hours, you can probably feel pretty accomplished and do most of the content in this game and that's at a reasonable average pace. And that's pretty short for a RPG style game. It's very unique, so playing it casually is just an awesome experience. It's really, really, really underappreciated and undervalued as a game in general. You are correct. You don't really have to grind. As long as you fight all the fights that you take, you don't have to like go out of your way to force encounters to be a higher level and things like that. You can absolutely get away with just doing the amount of fights you're given in a playthrough. There's lots of cool customizations with weapons and things you can play around with. You can play through it multiple times and experience it a different way based on the strategy of your weapon usage and stuff like that. It is really awesome. So right here we missed 1, 2. So what did I say we were at encounter-wise? I forgot. So we haven't gotten a single museum encounter, which is actually not good. We want all of our encounters in the museum, and we want we want all our wait, the G23, I must have picked that up on accident. I guess I'll drop one of these bad boys. So right here we actually, I could have used it, silly me. We have to get 2 items forced into our inventory, and if you don't, you lose a ton of time in this cutscene. So you got to make sure you go into that with the right amount of inventory space. On top of all the gun management and different things you can do, there is new game. There's a post game, right, where you basically play through the story again. You keep all your weapons and your stats and things like that, and you get stronger and stronger with every playthrough. And then there's the Chrysler Building, which is like the true or the good ending. and that's a whole extra level of content in and of itself. And there's quite a bit of content in the Chrysler Building. A lot of really cool items that are kind of OP as well. Path of Exile patch tonight. I've never played Path of Exile. You've not swiped right enough for Parasite Eve 1 Tinder Museum date locations. Feels bad. So right here we see Clamp again, which, as I said, is always bad. It's never good to see Clamp. It means we're going to mash, 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 and we're going to be pretty displeased. Yeah, I know that a lot of I've seen it. There's a guy I actually know who speedruns Path of Exile. I can't remember what patch it was, and he tried to get me into it. But I'm just not a dungeon crawler, Diablo, Divine Divinity style of player. So I actually have this PlayStation 1 game that there's no speedruns or anything done for it. It was like a really, really bad Diablo 1 style of dungeon crawler, and it's called Darkstone. And I just found it the other day, and I didn't even bother putting it in, because I remember just not enjoying it at all as a kid. But I'd actually never heard anybody else talk about it, or I've never seen anybody else play it. I've never heard that anybody else owns it. So if you want to see a really, really bad dungeon crawler, go play Darkstone. So finally, Clamp Kill is dead. Much to all of our pleasure. We don't have to deal with it anymore. It's budget Hojo. Yeah, so now I'm glad you caught it. He looks a lot like Hojo, and Eve looks a lot like Genova, and they kind of play similar roles as far as the plot is concerned. So you can kind of see how they're paying respects to the Final Fantasy franchise, especially considering that a lot of the same developers worked on these in conjunction with one another. I've never seen a speedrun for Darkstone. I should go check it out. I know that they don't have a speedrun.com page, which is, you know, if it's not on there, I just don't bother looking. Speed demos archive and things like that. If I gotta dig through the trenches to find it, it's probably not worth me running. Oh wow. So I actually should just wait this out. I must have gotten rid of my my Cure D, which was silly of me to do. So I just gotta basically stand here and wait 4 turns. Now, this fight is usually pretty simple. I got blinded because I was not paying very good attention. So that's my own fault. Now right here, man, bummer. So right here, you're gonna see me use medicine again to heal myself, and the reason for that is the same as it was earlier. Okay. And that's that we're about to fight a big boss that I want to have all my my ATB for, because I want to be able to haste and I want to be able to energy shot as soon as I can. Have you heard the song Darkstone Will Rise? I have not. I have not. Darkstone is good. It's what I would play when Diablo was down, as in never. Yeah, the museum is almost an hour long. Not really, it's close to like 30 minutes by itself, but day 5 is about an hour long. So that's like the whole, that's like a third of the game. So right here, what we're going to do is we're going to haste and hope we don't die. Now, I've died a couple times to this fight, doing some, even on incredible pace. He can do just stupid amounts of damage. He can actually kill you from 408 HP. If you, so I'm gonna actually heal here in a second once I see his charge damage. Okay, just 67 is fine. Usually when he charges like that, he will only do the same amount of damage he did on the first charge, or he will do less. So if you see him do 204, that's really bad. because that means he could one-shot you potentially if you let him charge you. And it's almost impossible to dodge the charge attack. It moves so quickly, and the hitbox is so much larger than the actual dinosaur is in and of itself. Similar to the frogs in the beginning of the game, and their tongue attack. Now, once you're in this phase, it's a pretty simple fight. You just kind of sit here, you eat spells, and then you just shoot him in the head. Now, I'm not casting haste again, despite having the ability to, and that's just because I don't want to. I want to be able to haste in the T-Rex fight. It's just worth more at that point. What determines his charge? It's completely random. It's just a damage roll, like some other attacks are in the game. But what he does, he can charge 2 times, or he can charge 3 times. So sometimes he can just kick the crap out of you for no reason. That fight usually goes exactly how you just saw. Pretty straightforward, not really any issue. But there are 2 times I've been on an incredible pace, and my run has died to that guy. 2 of my better runs ever. So he still gives me a little bit of PTSD. Because you only have, like 500 health, and for him to be able to do 408 in the matter of a second and a half is actually quite difficult. So right off the bat, cast haste. Haste is really important for a couple reasons, especially in this fight. As you can see, it clearly increases your ATB charge rate. But another thing that it does is it increases your actual movement speed. So that's pretty unique to this Parasite Eve as a game because of just how movement and battle work. And we don't want to get hit by fire. If we get hit by it, you can kind of, if you're in front of the T-Rex, you can kind of bait the direction the fire is going to go in. And if you're in front of him, you would do that. Otherwise, you stand on his back foot. And if you're taking 10 contact damage, that's how you know that you're in the correct spot. Now, I'm going to actually take a bunch of damage there. Ooh. Which means I need to heal here because... Ah, wow. So that was super unlucky that I used one of my best medicines for no reason. But I was worried I would die. Heals are not instantaneous, whereas medicine is not instantaneous, whereas heals are. Oh yikes, I should actually be really careful. So as you can see, it goes into like an instance right here, where I can't take any damage or anything. But whereas you use an item, it doesn't freeze everything like when you use a spell does. Finally, oh my goodness. So now we okay. Whew. No way did I just do that. What's more important? I guess burst. Well, I really screwed up. It won't matter. It won't change like being able to finish the run, but it's gonna make this a lot harder to meet estimate. Wow, that's twice I've ever done that. Both times they were in marathons. So that was a huge screw up on my part. It basically means that I'm gonna lose. I just lost a ton, pretty much half my damage for the remainder of the run. So what we should have done there is I should have moved my bonus stats from the M10 to the M8000, but instead I moved it to the M500. And then I moved, and then at that point you would then move burst to the M8000 from the M500, but I put my bonus stats on there, so I could only choose one, and burst is definitely the more important stat to have, even if it does hurt my damage a little bit. So yeah. Oh wait, I actually gotta make sure that I'm high enough level. It was I'm not. Wow, I'm actually not even close. So I need to force a couple encounters here, lose a little bit of time. But I need... And then I forgot to equip it. I was so preoccupied with how badly I screwed up. So yeah, I should have, I lost a lot of damage. Now it's gonna take a long time for me to kill stuff. It's actually not as bad as the first time I did it, because I added an extra rate of fire, which lowered my damage percentage. Whoa, Yin Silver, I just, did you hear? If not, I can re-explain it for you. I know the chat is a little bit behind my, or vice versa. We're a little bit, off with one another. But yeah, I was supposed to transfer the damage from my weapon to the weapon I'm going to use, and instead I transferred it to a different weapon, and that other weapon had a stat I needed off of it too, so I could only choose one. I couldn't transfer it. Not everything is transferable like that, unfortunately. Okay, perfect. So, this has happened before. If any, nothing bad will happen. Like, it doesn't make it any harder or anything. It's just gonna make it, fights are gonna be a little slower. But as long as I make it through Eve, it shouldn't be a big deal, because we use Liberate for the majority of the in-game fights. So it'll be alright. I'm not worried. I'm just more disappointed that I've done that twice now. And part of it is because I do the menus so slow. I try not to rely on muscle memory because I don't want to screw up, so instead I use my eyes. And when you're looking at a weapon that says M8000 or M500, it's easy to get them mixed up. Oh well, not the end of the world. We weren't on world record pace or anything crazy like that anyways, so we're not losing anything besides a little bit of a lulz. But as you can see here, the gun now targets multiple enemies, so if you can kind of position stuff well, you can hit every enemy on the screen, and naturally it saves ammo, it does more damage per shot, and makes fights just go by a little bit faster. There was a super tool I could have picked up, but you know, that would have been really out of the way, and it would have just taken up an inventory space that I wouldn't have needed had I just paid attention. So could have gone and found a backup gun. Yeah, see, like, I'll only lose probably a minute, so it's really not that big a deal. I would have also needed an extra tool, so I would have had to find one of those as well, which would have taken probably a lot longer than the minute or so I'll lose. So not a big deal. But because this next fight I'm about to fight has multiple targets, like it has 3 targets that you can hit. Sorry, eating a pizza roll. Oh, excuse me. Because the next fight has 3 targets that you need to be able to hit, the burst is more important than the actual damage. So that's why knowing that I could either only take the damage or the burst, so that's why I chose to take the burst. So yeah, this is actually a 10-minute cutscene of mixed mashing and cutscene kind of scattered, about 10 minutes total. So while I'm mashing, I'll explain a little bit of the story to you guys up until this point. So in the show, or I'm sorry, in the movie and the book, it's the very, very pertinent theme that Eve needs to get pregnant, right? Now in the movie and book, there's a small little romantic scene between her pretending to be this, you know, basically disguised herself as this guy's wife, and gets impregnated by him. Well, in the game, they chose to keep those more sexually explicit tones out, and they just kind of explained that she went and got pregnant, as opposed to you actually seeing it. Now, the reason she needed to get pregnant was that she would get pregnant with the first advanced mitochondria being to be born naturally, and he would be the first 100% genetically enhanced mitochondria advanced being, and then he would go around reproducing and slaying humans, and basically ushering in a new level of species, replacing the world with only these genetically superior mitochondria beings, as opposed to the humans that now inhabit it. So as he reproduced, they would kill more and more humans until basically a new age was ushered in. And that's kind of where she's at now. That's kind of the whole intention of the game. Chrono Crosser, yes sir. You Chrono Crosser watched me do it the first time I did it, and it was on a stream with a few thousand viewers. And I was cracking up because, like, had I not said anything about it, most people wouldn't understand, not knowing a whole lot about the game, that I did screw up something. But I'm fine. I'll admit it. I've been practicing Ni no Kuni a lot lately, so my Parasite Eve is rusty. But yeah, that was a super big mistake to make. Like, if you were actually in a speed run, the run would be lost, but we'll be alright. It just means we'll get to see Liberate a little bit more, which is actually super freaking cool to watch. But yeah, and the reason that Aya and Eve are these sisters is actually, or they seem like sisters, is because Aya had a sister, or had a twin who was separated. I believe that's how it goes. A twin who was separated when they were little, and one of them needed a kidney, and one of them needed a cornea. So Aya was the one who received a cornea donation, whereas the other kid, and maybe they're not sisters at all, but they look the same. The other kid received the kidney. Now, the other kid that received the kidney was the singer Melissa in the park that turned into the Eve that we see now. Whereas Aya receiving just a cornea, a much smaller organ, obviously. She was, she didn't develop and genetically mutate the same way that her counterpart did. So that's why she has the invulnerability to it, essentially, and the other one turned into the full-fledged Eve. So that's why she's the only one who can stop her, and they are connected to an extent, because they both have the original Mother Eve's DNA inside them. And the original Mother Eve that they're referencing is the Eve from the Japanese movie or novel. Have you ever played The Third Birthday? I have not. I have not, and I will never. I've watched it be played, though, which is why I say I will not, and I will never. Wish I could. We don't speak of that game. Excellent. Then I played The Third Birthday with crying face. Oh man, that's genius. Because that's exactly how it is. Wish I wish I could forget about The Third Birthday after I played it. So that it's crazy that everybody is on the same page. I've never met anybody that's actually like, that's a really good game. I don't know what you're talking about. Anybody who's played it is like, oh no, yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's trash. Yeah, if you watch the movie or read the book, they actually exactly how Valknut 4. Sorry if I said that wrong. Valnut. What he just explained is something that they mention and pay respects to in the movie and the novel. So definitely, if you've played the game, go watch the crappy, cheesy movie. It's definitely really, really awesome as far as like connecting the dots and being like, oh, okay, cool, that's interesting. You can kind of see, the tie-ins, and it makes you appreciate the game's storyline just a little bit more. Valknut 4. Okay, cool. I thought it was good until I read books. Until I read the books and played 1 and 2. I've actually never read the, I've never read the novel, but I would really, really love, just for collection's sake, to get a hold of the Parasite Eve 1 novel in English. Or the Parasite Eve novel in English. Yeah, so funny little thing that that happens is they go and they get her, the military does, the Air Force, and they say, come with us. And they take her up in this helicopter. They take her to this plane tower, this airline tower, basically. Flight tower, whatever it's called. And they say, listen, uh, we're just in the middle of New York City firing missiles at this giant gelatin monster and we can't kill her. We need you to do it. We don't care that you've never flown a helicopter in your life. We've never cared that you have no idea what you're doing. We don't even want you to wear a seatbelt. Just jump in there with no protective gear whatsoever, no seatbelt, and fire missiles in the middle of the city, please, because we believe that you can do it. And there's no need for an explanation, because she's Aya, and she does cool stuff the entire game. She fights monsters and demons and shoots giant scorpions and centipedes and bugs with her gun. Like, she's just too strapped, and she can pretty much do anything she wants at this point. And why is that? And the answer is obviously just because of her mitochondria. And that's the beauty of the game. Anything you don't understand, you can just explain away with mitochondria. Angel Valis, the movie is on YouTube, yes. The movie is in its entirety on YouTube. Definitely go check it out. It's a really bad resolution, but you're not gonna find much better anyways because it's in like the mid 90s. So take what you can get. Seatbelts weren't fashionable in the 90s. Ain't that the truth, man? Ain't that the truth? So right, they're like, yay, we killed it, and all it took was us destroying the Statue of Liberty, which we could care less about. And they're like, just kidding, she came back to life. And so now we pretty much just took an L on the Statue of Liberty for no reason, but whatever. Did you think that it was stupid the first time you played it, or did you just suspension of disbelief it at first? What are we talking about? Are we talking the movie, or are we talking the game? Because I thought the game was cool. Like, I played it much later than its actual release. So I played it from a kind of a retrospective standpoint, just kind of appreciating it for like the game that it was, kind of thing. What was I doing? Oh yeah, trying to get every bonus point I can get. Let me. Okay, cool, perfect. This game is ridiculous enough that it doesn't register as stupid to me. Yeah, it is a little, and that's the thing, right? And games with like biology or like time travel or stuff like that, they kind of have to make up their own science as to why things are the way they are, and and you can kind of respect their attempt to do that in some way, shape, or form in this game. While it wasn't the greatest job in the world of doing so, it's still cool. Oh, that yeah, Teen Girl 1993. Yeah, so that's this game right there where they made her fly the helicopter, and they don't say any of that stuff. It's just you're just like, what? Come on now. She doesn't, you just put her in a helicopter. But as a kid playing the game, you're like, dope. Now I'm in a helicopter. You don't care that you don't have the appropriate licensing and credentials in order to do so. You just want to fly helicopters and shoot stuff. And so it's just something to complain about. When you've done 500 speedrun attempts of it, it's it's important to find things to complain about. So that's all. So this fight is usually made pretty simple, but because of my screwing up of the gun, it's gonna take a little bit longer than usual. So primarily what you want to do, I should have hasted already, but primarily what you want to do here is haste, and then just shoot her a bunch. Now our gun allows us to enter 2 commands and attack. And haste is important to be able to dodge being grabbed. Now, you can kind of play this risky with like a low HP threshold, just because it's very, very hard for her to kill you, just because of the type of ability she uses. They don't do a huge chunk of damage all at once. They do like lots of little damage, and the CM vest pretty much takes care of that for us. We might actually die here. Nope. Wow, this is taking a long time. Oh my goodness. So when you see her jump to the middle, you just run underneath her. That means the fight's almost over. I'm actually going to heal once here. And that's because the next fight is important for me to have HP. But she died on the first attack, so it doesn't matter. To be fair, they never said she didn't know how to fly a helicopter. Absolutely. Absolutely right. Maybe they just assume, you know, we're appealing to an audience that believes that all policemen are capable of doing anything, because that's the respect we have for our law enforcement, which is very much the same as it is today, obviously. So what I'm gonna do is, oh yikes, what do I do? I guess I'll just wing it. She only did 28 damage. So what I'm going to do here is fire one bullet and liberate. Now, she probably won't die. She takes probably 5 or 6 more shots after this. But liberate is so freaking cool. You do 7 attacks. You turn into like a half mitochondria being. If you've ever seen the anime Claymore, I always compare it to that. Where at the end of Claymore, Claire, who's half beast, is able to like summon the beast inside her and turn into a little bit of a beast without losing her humanity. And that makes her stronger, and that's kind of what you do here. Wow, so that actually went way better than the last time I did it, so we actually will probably not go over estimate. I don't know, it's hard to say. Yeah, we will. Maybe, I don't know. I can't remember what it's like to run at a not a sub 3 pace. I don't remember the timings, at least. This game's music was so dang good. I used the Top Shop theme as my. Oh yeah, yeah. Actually, I have my ringtone is the Parasite Eve theme song. Oh, let me see if I can find it real quick. Where's my phone? The music in this game is done very, very well, and that's because it's one of their more famous composers that did the music for it, as well as it was the same composer who did the music for the movie. Here you go. Oops, I wasn't paying attention. See, that's my ringtone. Here in Japan, they actually respect the police. Claymore. Yeah, Claymore was amazing. It's a shame that it didn't get the second season because it ran out of funding or whatever. But it does remind me every time I use Liberate, it reminds me a lot of when Claire goes like half demon in Claymore. Yeah, my bad. I accidentally mashed save right there while I was trying to use my phone to find the ringtone. So. Yeah, dude, the FMVs. If you had watched it at that time when FMVs were like the pinnacle cutting edge graphic technology we had in video games, you know, if you were just like a 10-year-old kid or something, it would have been kind of rough to watch, man. Some of it's kind of scary. So right here we just humor him, and you got to be very careful not to accidentally try and name your gun because you can really screw some stuff up there. So this guy I'm gonna get a bunch of medicine from because I don't know how much medicine I'm gonna need because I have the slower, I have the weaker damage gun, and I'm gonna get ammo just to be safe. So then we exit, and we start the last leg, guys. Time for the baby rage. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. So day 6 is just 4 bosses fought. There's 4 bosses that you just fight in order. There is no downtime in between the fights, so in a casual playthrough it can be quite intimidating, but we actually have pretty good ways to deal with it. Each one of the fights are not very difficult. I think that the most difficult fight is probably the second one, and it used to actually kill some people's runs, but because I struggled with it so much and was too worried about on a run where I don't have any revives going for like a really good pace, I hated dying here, and it happened to me a lot. So I came up with a secondary strategy that turns out is the same speed, but is immensely safer, and doesn't require us to work extra hard. Um, so now it's pretty much straightforward. Day 6 is fairly consistent and fairly simple. If you just do what you're supposed to on every single fight, uh, especially when you have the better gun, the gun you're supposed to have at this point, they're usually pretty easy. The most difficult fight is running the wrong way in the engine room. Okay, so we're not going to talk about that because that gives me a lot of anxiety, and I have to mute my TV because of the music and everything there. A lot of people don't understand the severity of it, especially in a speed run. But if I screw that up, like we just have to go to the next game because start the whole game over if we screw that up. My Parasite Eve notes, Valknut 4, are actually just it's just 10 lines of text that tell me the direction I'm supposed to go. Even though I've done it hundreds of times, I will never not have my notes up for that last segment because of how easy it is to just lose the entire run. Speaking of scary cutscenes, I got Resident Evil when I was 9, the first zombie cutscene where he eats that dude's head off. Oh, you know how many people I've heard that have said, like, when that zombie turns around, that same scene you're mentioning, that they were like, well, not playing this. I know a lot of kids my age, when Resident Evil came out, they were like, wow, my mom wouldn't let me play that, man. It gave me nightmares. Nowadays, it's just, this guy looks like Stewie Griffin more than anything. But this is the ultimate being, storyline-wise. He has been born, and we have to stop him before he evolves to the ultimate being matured form, which is the stingray-looking thing we fight last. So yeah, we gotta start off by killing this baby. Gotta kill the baby to save the world. So the strategy here is pretty simple. You just haste and gun him down. Now he actually has a move that reduces you to 1 HP, and pretty much guarantees that you're gonna pop your strongest medicine. However, if you stand right on top of his head while he uses it, you can usually bait out some invincibility frames and keep yourself from having to use the medicine. So far he hasn't used that attack though, so we're alright. Oh, okay. So yeah, the fight took a little bit longer because of the weaker gun, which in turn made me take just a little bit more damage. But ultimately, it didn't punish the run too hard as far as being able to finish it. Not nearly as bad as it did last time. So this is the fight where most people would lose their runs. This is a really difficult fight because of how the maneuverability of this guy. He's ridiculous. See if I can get just one more attack off. Okay, brilliant. So what we do now is, this is the new strategy. We shoot him once while he's on the ground, we liberate with our second command, and we need 4 of the 7 attacks to go onto the body piece that's on the ground. If more than 4 go onto the bird part that's in the sky, the fight won't be over, but it'll still be a lot easier. So, okay, so we should be good. Just for good measure, if one more would go into the body, that'd be fun. Oh, well, no, perfect RNG. He might not be dead because of how weak my gun is. The math might not be the same. But yeah. Okay, so he's going to jump to the middle. He should die. Yep, 1 hit. Perfect. So that's that fight. I didn't take any damage. It was very simple. I didn't even have control for most of it. Whereas it used to be almost 1 minute and 30 seconds of us praying that we didn't get killed. So I really prefer that way. I know a lot of people still do it the old way. And it's completely up to you. If your game doesn't have you killing aborted third trimester babies, then it's a bad game. Then you must be a fan. This must be the only game you play then, man, because I don't know of any other games that get that wild, you know what I'm saying? Parasite Eve is unique. So this fight is what we used to do. Oh man, bummer. What we used to do is immediately liberate, fire 7 shots and then liberate. Haste, fire 7 shots and then liberate. By the time that we got liberate available, he would be dead to the liberate. But now what we do with this strategy that I use is we just pop medicine while we shoot him. And by doing this, it allows us, because we don't, by the time we get Liberate, since we're not starting with much charge, um, we'll have done enough damage for a Liberate to kill him. So this way, we can guarantee that we're going into the last fight way healthier than we usually do. He keeps on bothering me, man. There you go. So what we used to, this fight used to be about 20 seconds faster, but we trade that off for making the last fight a little bit faster, making this one longer. And that's a lot harder to die in this one than it is the previous one, just because of how the way their damage and attacks work. So I definitely do it this way, whereas a lot of other people do it the old way still, so it's completely personal preference. Wow, I said we would guarantee he dies, but then I remembered that my gun is complete trash. Oh, that's actually really favorable. Alright, cool. So now is the final boss of the game, the final thing that you have to fight in the entire game. Now, it also, we start off by doing no damage to it until we do 20 damage to it. We do 1 damage for a regular attack, 2 damage for a crit, and once we do 20 damage to it, we actually watch a cutscene. Basically, he's so advanced, our regular bullets mean nothing to him, and he's on some Wolverine level immunity. And then we see one of the sickest cutscenes in video game history, brought to you by my boy Daniel, just doing the most, as he pretty typically does. Wow, it's taking so long. But I want to make sure that I stay healthy, because those little green things can do a surprising amount of damage if you just let them stack up like that. There we go. So we didn't get very many crits, and that's the reason that fight took long. Can't run fast if you gun his ass. So this is the dopest cutscene in the history of video games. I'll let you guys enjoy it. Alright, let's talk about what just happened here for a second. Your boy is in a helicopter. He receives this clip of genetically modified bullets that are gonna kill this enemy, save the world. So he jumps out of a moving helicopter, catches flame mid-dive, throws this perfect pass of the one clip of ammo on the earth that can stop this and save humanity. Throws a perfect throw right to her, then he lands in the water to extinguish the flames. And he does all of this without even scorching his suit. Damn, Daniel. Damn, Daniel. Alright guys, so I'm actually going to stop reading chat. I'm going to mute my television, and I'm going to pay really, really close attention to what's going to happen next. I'll explain it afterwards. We have a lot of downtime after the run, so, but as for now, I'm going to have to really focus here for a second. Sure, my heart is beating a million miles a minute and I can't even hear the music. I just know the music's playing and it's giving me anxiety. So if you get caught by the ultimate being at any point during this, or you go back a screen that you've already been on, the game's over. And because we don't save, the whole run is lost. Almost every single one of our speedrunners have lost a run at this point. And because you can buffer movements in loads, if you're accidentally holding the wrong button, you have to let go entirely of the D-pad. If you're accidentally holding the wrong button on the D-pad when it's loading, you'll kill yourself. So I am actually the current world record has a 2 times the screen actually glitched a small amount, and on the scene where you saw me climb the stairs, there was like a light interaction glitch where she didn't climb the ladder. So I was holding up saying, you know, climb the ladder, and this next screen loaded, and I was probably a frame away from losing the world record that currently exists now. But that's it, guys. That is all of the actual gameplay in Parasite Eve. Now we have some mashing to do. We have some. So yeah, we're probably gonna go over estimate. I think. Maybe not. What does that say? 851 or 251? I don't know. I don't remember exactly how long from here. I think 17 minutes. So 10, 7, 8. So maybe we'll see. But yeah, that's the game, guys. That's Parasite Eve. That's the last thing you actually control. Now you just mash, and you just chill for a minute. The reason that we mash through all this is because at the very, very end, after the credits, once you confirm the save, that's when it gives you your final stats and your final end-game time and all of that to prepare you for the new game plus if you choose to end up partaking in that. We've considered changing where we do our final split, but ultimately we just can't find a whole lot of merit to ignoring what the in-game time is and all that stuff, even though that's not how we measure. We go by RTA, but it's still a discussion. We actually, up until recently, only had a few runners, but Parasite Eve, thanks to like the community and everything, is starting to grow quite a bit. I try to run it in every marathon I can in order to get it some exposure, because it's an extremely simple speed game. It's absolutely easy to learn, so if you're trying to learn a first speed game and you love RPGs, come out. We have a guide that, I know I keep saying this, but it is incredible, and you can learn the game in a day, and be doing runs. So if it's an interesting game, or if it's a game that interests you, and you're interested in learning it, absolutely find us on our speedrun page. We have a Discord where, you know, there's not a whole lot of us. I think we're up to 15 runs now, which is way more than when I started playing. And like everybody who runs the game is very active in Discord and stuff, and we care a lot about it. So we're willing to talk and discuss ideas and all that stuff, help new runners out as well. Thank you so much for the GG, guys. Sorry, I just looked at chat. I had it minimized. Thanks so much for the GGs and everything. Yeah, so that last scene, I know that you could hear the music. I have to mute my TV every time I do it, because it's like boom, 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 and it just speeds up, and I have panic attacks, man. It's unnecessary. He said this part casually is such BS, dude. It totally is, because you can't actually save. You can save before you start those boss fights, but not after. In the same save spot that you saved before the boss fights is a phone right after you read the map when you're running away. So if you go to try and save, it'll say, sorry, you can't save. And doing that will actually let the thing catch up to you. So it kind of debates you a little bit into losing for no reason. Like, it wasn't very good design when they did that. It was so unnecessary. But yeah, if you're a casual player, you don't know what the hell's going on, and you accidentally go back a screen, like the whole game's over, and you're like, wow, are you freaking serious? So yeah, for the whole run to come down to just those small instances of, I think there's like, what, 9 screens, 8 screens, something like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 screens then. Not counting entering the ship in the first place. If you just screw up one of those, the whole run's over. You lose it. And almost every single one of us has done that at one point or another. Yeah, the face on. Look at everybody, man. Look at all the background characters. They're all like drawn in, right? They're all like actually set in the art of the background, and then you just got these goofy looking Lego people. It's the meme from Jaws on Crack. Oh my god. Yeah, it's the creature that killed Steve Irwin. So funny enough, I actually there's a stingray boss in Ni no Kuni, and there's a stingray looking boss in Parasite Eve as well. Now it's not the final boss or anything like that in Ni no Kuni, but still it's funny that the two games that I run, the Steve Irwin meme, blood runs deep. Exo comma, appreciate you. You keep throwing me those plugs. I notice, man. I appreciate you. That's my boy. But now that I've done this marathon, I actually think that the 14th next week I am running Parasite Eve and Deegan Dash, and then after that I don't have anything on my schedule. So I guess I'll start learning Parasite Eve 2. I'm also considering learning Pets Cats 2, the speed run. For meme purposes and just to have something kind of fun and silly. Um, so we'll definitely see. I'm considering lots of things. I know that there's a Gaia Lancer sent me an incredible list of games that I might be interested in running. So I'll definitely be looking over some stuff because right now I don't have any. I don't have any games to run. I've kind of exhausted the games that I care a lot about, and I'm world record in both of them currently. Um, So it's time for me to kind of add more to my repertoire. But yeah, so it's really funny. They basically go get a new lead singer, and 6 days later, they're like, "Hey, you know what? We should just do the same play. Nobody would, people would still show up, and instead of having everyone burst into flames, we'll just provide our own fire. Like how tasteless. Who is managing this place? Because they're doing a bad job." Yeah, this ending that you're about to see here, as Valknut 4 is explaining, is a lot of people had a lot of questions about it, and until you actually go and finish the Chrysler Building story arc, you won't know the actual true ending. So Valknut 4's little summary right there that you're seeing is actually a pretty common one that a lot of people were like, "Wow, so maybe neither of you is a good guy. I mean, you're both bad guys. You know, one more bad than the other, one more sinister than the other, but ultimately, um, two individual species, one human um, creature and one full creature, and the human creature won, and for solidarity's sake, ensure its survival against the other or whatever." So like, there's so many cool fan theories and stuff like that out there. But if you just go and play the Chrysler Building, it gives you the actual true ending and kind of fills in the gaps that this ending is leaving you right now. She is human. She's just also half mitochondria, uh, half advanced mitochondria being, or whatever you want to consider it, whatever the term would be to define that. Whereas Eve was full blown mitochondria controlled a being. Whereas Aya, similar to Claymore, so that's why I keep likening it to that. Uh, Whereas Claire was like a little bit beast and a little bit human. Aya is a little bit beast, a little bit human, whereas Eve is full blown beast. So it takes the power of the monster to be able to defeat the monster, as long as you have the power of the monster maintained by the willpower of humanity. You know what I mean? That's kind of like the overall um, theme. So yeah, we're definitely not coming in underestimate. This is the credits are about 8 minutes long, and so we'll go a little overestimate. I don't feel bad about it though. We would have come in underestimate had I not had I not screwed up that gun part. Yeah, you can actually find the true ending on YouTube. I won't reveal it to you guys in case nobody's ever played it. It's actually, if you go do the New Game Plus, and you can actually find like save files, like memory card files online. So if you don't even want to have to play the regular game and you just want a save file with all the max stats, just so that you can go play that storyline, you can find those online. Otherwise, go play the game and play the storyline. I don't want to explain it here because it is really worth playing if you're interested in playing it to begin with. It is a really, really cool ending. The true ending is in the Chrysler Building. But you can actually find it in its entirety on YouTube. It's not very long. That little segment is pretty short. So if you want to know without having to play the game, definitely go look it up. GG Learning Lab, thank you so much, my friend. Appreciate it. Perhaps I'll have to try the game out on an emulator. I don't think I can find it. Yeah, you absolutely can do it on an emulator. And you can absolutely download the save files. And they work on the emulator as well. Very cool run. I'm glad you enjoyed it, man. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Parasite Eve is a very unique game. Not even the other games in the series, in the franchise, are at all like this one. So it's kind of a really unique series in that regard, where every single game is like different. The third birthday, which we technically shouldn't count, but that's an action game, whereas the second one is a survival horror, and the first one is an RPG. So it's one of the only franchises probably in history where it's 3 different games where you use the main character, and the storylines are kind of relatively similar. A lot of people really, really enjoyed this this song. I believe it's called like Somnia Memorias or something like that. I have it muted still, so but I just know like a lot of people are real big fans of this little piece of music. And also, like, if you've played the first one, go play Parasite Eve 2. Stay away from the third one, but play both of them. If you've played one, play the other. They're both great games in their respective categories. Both entirely different from one another, so it's a different experience in both regards. And Aya's a really cool main character. In Parasite Eve 2, she is shaped a little funny. In Parasite Eve 1, she's shaped funny as well, but she's just she can't get her body. She's got some body dysmorphia issues or something, so they keep making her strange looking. But outside of that, they both have there's a lot of highlights in both of the games. Valknut Ford, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it. Yin Silver, absolutely. I love running Parasite Eve. Parasite Eve is the first game I ever speedran. Well, first game I ever really speedran competitively. Final Fantasy IX I tried for a while before I moved to this, and I fell in love with it. And now I've put hundreds of hours into it. Primus, the pretty much the godfather of the route that we use now, and then the people who came before him that came up with the older route that he adjusted, and Turbo Dog and Carcinogen and B. Marie and all those people. They shout outs to them. They helped me a lot. I learned the game and just was doing run after run after run for a couple weeks until I started to get really good at it. And now we have a lot of new runners who are doing really incredible and starting to put up really good times. Every run that they put up definitely gets a lot better. So if you guys are interested in the game at all, definitely come check it. Even if you just want to play it casually and want to come pick our brains or something, feel free to check us out on speedrun.com /PE, just the letters P and E, for Parasite Eve 1. And pop in our Discord, whatever you need to do. Message me on Twitch, on my channel, twitch.tv/professor_Palmer. I have all my social medias in my bio and everything. The speedruns all in PS2 with fastest speed. We do allow emulator. We absolutely allow emulator. We allow pretty much any way that you can run it. PSP and PSTV are the fastest ways, which is you know, if you want the world record time, you're going to have to run on one of those. PS2 with fastest speed being second, emulator being third, and PS3 being in dead last. There it is. So we didn't go too far over estimate, better than I thought. But there you go, guys, ladies and gentlemen, that is Parasite Eve. My name is Professor Palmer. It has been absolutely incredible running the game for you guys. Thank you so much for all the support, Exo, Chrono Crosser, my regulars from my channel. It's good to see you. You guys are amazing, as always. Everybody else who's given tons of support, I appreciate it. Thank you guys in the chat for sitting and talking to me and enjoying this. And sorry for screwing it up at the end, but the run's still finished. And, you know, go check out some of the other VODs from some of the other runners or our speedrun page if you're interested in any of that. I'm actually going to double check real quick, make sure they're all ready to rock before I drop stream. What game will I do next? I'm not sure. Parasite Eve 2 maybe? Final Fantasy Tactics, Chrono Trigger, Pets Cats 2. I've considered a lot of games, and I'm not really sure. I'm kind of on the fence. Alright guys, well that's going to be it for me. It's 4 a.m. My name is Professor Palmer. This is Parasite Eve. Adios.